At one of the secluded corners of the city where only open fields for agricultural land and mills for harvesting the produce were situated, a mage donned in black robes walked at a steady pace. "You better have it ready, or I'm killing you all instead," spoke Loki in his mind. Winds howled as the midnight darkness had encapsulated this entire area. Only the tall crops and bushes were noticeable if one looked closely. Loki was walking on a paved soil road leisurely. But at this very moment, there were 20 assassins and archers tailing him from just a kilometer away to stay undetected by the peak Grandmaster Mage. If not for the fellow subordinates given to him by Khan, he would have failed to detect these people and mistakenly lead them to their mansion. But since the owner was learning from his little mistake, so were the generals. Ronan had already told the strategy to all the other generals in Omega, so they don't get mixed up in unnecessary trouble or reveal their identities to the enemy. In his case, what Cyril liked the most was killing people and experimenting with their bodies to create more undead. And he wasn't in the mood of changing his obsession for the sake of being cautious. Besides, sending these people to tail him also meant that Odin was snooping his nose where he shouldn't have. And that part angered him the most, so there was a need to send a warning. When he reached the center of this open settlement, his figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. Tap, tap, step, step. 2 minutes later, numbers of black shadows appeared from various directions and gathered at the place where the mage previously stood. Some appeared out of the shadows of the mills, while some from the open fields of crops, and finally broke the silence. "Where is he? I can't sense him at all," spoke a demonkin assassin. "No idea. We too saw him disappear right here just a few minutes ago. He's a mage, not an assassin or archer like us to disappear into thin air even if he were to be a grandmaster individual," said another one of the assassins in a rustic tone. At this exact moment, dozens of black shadows revealed themselves in 500 meters radius, encircling this group and activated the artifacts they were holding. Shing! Suddenly, a dark dome appeared right above their heads and covered the 500-meter surrounding area in a matter of seconds, completely covering and isolating this group from the outside. "Welcome to my hell." A ghastly and eerie voice landed on the ears of all these pursuers who were now trapped inside this dark barrier. Just 100 meters away from this group of assassins and archers, Loki revealed his figure and dozens of red archaic magical formations appeared on the ground around these people. Crack, crack. The ground started cracking around the group and bony hands pushed themselves out of the soil. Hundreds of noises of the ground cracking resounded as skeletons varying from humans to demi-humans burst open the field and rose as if an army of creatures from hell was erupting in front of them. From every single hole, dozens of skeletons in varying sizes jumped outwards and started encircling this group of guests. All the members of the opposition were rooted on the spot, taken aback by fear and disbelief as they saw nearly 300 skeleton soldiers and walking zombies with burning red eyes staring at them. "Since you've taken so much of your time in pursuing me, allow me to show my appreciation towards your hard work," said Loki as he chuckled in a sinister tone. The next moment, he summoned a huge throne, made completely out of white bones and skulls of who knows how many creatures. Loki sat comfortably as he looked at his army of undead that he had cultivated so far in the past 10 days. Although the number was only 300, every single one of these summons was at least a beginner-rank creature. This was an overkill to be exact. But what he wanted wasn't just to toy with these people, but to show how it felt being in the presence of the Grim Reaper. "Entertain our guests," he commanded, and the soldiers started walking towards the group of fighters. Thud! Thud! The giant 5-meter-tall undead monsters he created recently walked towards the group that was now surrounded and had taken a defensive stance. Each of them showing immense fear on their face but still mustering the courage to fight against these undead. All their curses and warnings towards the army surrounding them landed on deaf ears. This is what exactly Loki wanted. To crush their spirit first and then give them a glimpse of absolute despair. "Now, come to me. I shall enlighten you about true aspects of life and death," said Loki in a sadistic voice. "Arr!" screamed one of the female assassins whose leg was grabbed by a skeleton's hand that appeared from the ground right below her. "No, please let us go," "We were only following orders," pleaded a snakekin. "Spare us. We promise we won't dare to come in your way ever again," said a human archer. "Arg! My hand!" screamed one of the pursuers as an undead jumped at him and chewed off his flesh on the forearm. Some of the new tall master rank monsters also attacked and incapacitated the enemies while the small undeads chew out entrails and skin these people alive. Cyril was watching and enjoying the show, laughing maniacally as he ordered the soldiers to be more creative. Their screams filled the dome as Loki sat on the throne, his maniacal laughs giving even more sinister touch to the scene. The expression on his face turned ecstatic as he watched these people getting scared shitless, fighting for their lives and getting swarmed with the sheer numbers of undead soldiers who tore their limbs and ripped out their flesh one by one. To their begs for mercy after getting outnumbered completely, Loki only replied in a stern and ruthless voice, "Tonight, let there be carnage." In an open field where not a single living being could be seen, a completely horrifying scene that contradicted this peaceful and quiet scene happened inside an invisible barrier that couldn't even be sensed from outside. "Err!" screamed a woman archer as beast skeletons with sharp claws cracked open her chest, breaking her ribcage and then chewed her heart while she was still alive. "Ha ha ha! That's a good one," commented Loki as he was reveling in the wails of the people who were tailing him not long ago. After being surrounded by 300 undeads, these 20 people had no place to run or hide, and the barrier itself couldn't be broken or their teleportation scrolls worked here. The mage in front of them had set a perfect ambush and they were not left with a single escape route. Loki had already ordered his soldiers to take their time and kill them all in creative ways. All their weapons, bombs, and skills barely killed 50 or so undeads, but the problems were the big ones who weren't receiving any considerable damage. One of the defenders accidentally blew himself up when he was trying to throw a bomb at the skeletons, but they pulled his legs from below the ground and he dropped the bomb right below him. To Loki, whether it was the pursuers or his own skeletons dying seemed like a fun activity as he was maniacally laughing and passing comments as if he was a judge of some competition and the most creative and cruel death will get a reward. "No a hair!" wailed a female tigerkin assassin as her buttocks and tail was ripped out by a four-legged beast skeleton. Next, a human's intestines were used to gag his mouth as hound-like skeletons chewed his legs from the thighs while both his arms were pierced through by an amalgamation of a centaur and mithrans who had spiky extension coming out. His pitiful cries filled the surroundings, but there was not a single soul who cared about the agony and brutality he was suffering through. "Good. Now tear him in two and use his legs to beat the others," ordered Loki aka Cyril while he drank a glass full of red wine which looked like blood to everyone present here. In just 20 minutes, 8 of them had fallen. Given the number of attackers, they wouldn't have lasted even 2 minutes, but since Loki had ordered these undeads to take their time, the lives of these people were being toyed with as the mage dressed in black robes was enjoying this horrifying and bloodied scene. How the hell is this possible? Wasn't necromancy abolished completely? Only the undeads from dungeons can use it. So how come this bastard is using it? Asked a male foxkin. "How the hell would I know? How many bombs you have left? We need to create a path and escape," replied a snakekin archer. "But can we? We can't even get out of this circle," replied the foxkin as he parried an attack from a monster with his daggers. Stab! Before more words could be spoken, the snakekin's throat was pierced through by a bony tail of a giant monster that seemed like a combination of a botur and mithrans. These were the creatures none of the defenders had seen in their entire lives. As the night went by, all of the defenders were brutally murdered, and the place they previously stood was now covered in different colors of blood. Their mangled and torn bodies filled the surroundings as all of them were played with before their miserable and inhumane deaths by these undead monsters. "Ah, what a pain," said Loki as he took out the restoration artifact after all of his summons returned inside the magic formations. The crops were trampled upon by his undead soldiers while the ground was painted in red. So he decided to cover up tracks and bring back the surrounding back to how it was before the massacre started. He used the same epic rank artifact that he used while robbing graves in the first few days of grave robberies that removed every single track of a grave being dug out. The pursuers were now part of his undead army, so he was content with this little harvest as he too had some quality time. 2 weeks later, Cyril was already in his bedroom, looking at the morning sun through the window. Unlike the other subordinates, he didn't need sleep at all. But to keep his identity as a human, he had to put up some pretenses to not raise suspicions as instructed by his master. For the past 2 weeks, he had been carrying on his experiments after receiving 3,000 bodies in the first batch handed to him in large inner space rings, as if being fearful of him. Hank, the right-hand man of Odin, who was the one to deliver these rings, didn't even dare to utter a word or ask about the people who went to tail Loki 2 weeks ago, as if they already had a sense of understanding on what topic not to touch or put their nose in. And Cyril had been carrying on his experiments as usual, improving and creating more stronger undeads and skeleton soldiers. His success rate also drastically improved, and he now had 200 peak master rank monsters and soldiers after tiresome effort. He already had his daytime duties, so only the morning and nighttime was available to him. This also indicated his talent in magic and necromancy, because inheriting someone's skills was one thing and completely mastering as well as evolving them into something higher was another. Just like Khan, he too had to work his way up with hard efforts. When Khan was continuing his morning practice sessions for weapons and magic, Cyril visited him in the training grounds that were in the opposite end of his research facility. "Master, I wish to borrow something from you," said Cyril, donned in his usual white and purple mage clothes. "What is it? And why?" asked Khan, who was sweating profusely after an intense workout and training session that was his routine for nearly a month now. First, he trained his body with regular weapons and combat techniques training that tired him out, and then spent the rest of the day studying and performing various magical skills and spell which required him to sit down so his body would also get the much-needed rest. And hence, he would end up training both the body and the mind. This form of discipline required a lot of commitment and tenacity. But Khan knew that slacking off was no longer an option. Cyril then told him what he had in mind and why he needed something from him. "Are you certain? Because the way I look at it, it's a very dangerous goal to accomplish even for a semi-saint rank fighter like me. If you want, I can provide help or send the other generals to help you. Omega Vajugram can be a big help to you as well given the actions you wish to take," said Khan solemnly. Just now, Cyril had told him a very devious yet completely bananas type of plan and goal he wanted to achieve. "No need, master. This is my personal operation. No help from anyone is needed. I can easily handle this on my own. I just need the artifact," replied Cyril, his tone filled with absolute determination. "Fine. But if you die, what about the undeads you created? I can revive you again, but they're not my direct creations, so I can't do the same for them," asked Khan. "They all will perish, and I will have to start from scratch again. Please do not worry. I have thought this through," said Cyril. Khan sighed and took out a familiar artifact from his space ring that he had used previously on a few occasions. After handing it to Cyril, he went back to his training. He knew that he had to show some faith in his generals as well, because in the future they would be like his own vassals who served an emperor. So just like him, this was also a time for them to gain worldly experience and knowledge. They too had to learn from trial and error to be forged in fire and come out as someone capable of handling matters related to commanding others. And Cyril was planning to do exactly that. At that same night, Cyril in his Loki persona met Hank again. But this time, he passed a letter to Hank that was only to be read by his boss. Hank delivered the goods and returned to their main headquarters at midnight. Odin read the letter sent by the Peak Grandmaster Mage, and even he was gobsmacked after reading the context. Is he out of his mind? Who the hell is his backer to pull off a move like this? This is like putting all of the people who want to kill each other in the same room, spoke Odin as soon as he read the final words of the letter. "Summon the Hydra." Odin, the tall and ripped-build thrall, was seated in his office and going through the context of the letter as he was still finding it hard to come to terms with what he read just now, because the words written there were something that not only baffled him but also completely unexpected. He heaved a sigh with a solemn countenance and read the words again. "I have a big business proposition. It is something too big for one person or an organization alone. So I need you to contact the other 6 heads of the rumored Hydra that I've come to hear about recently. I'm fully aware of the complexity and how hard of a task it is to do it in just a week. But it is more effective and time-saving if it is you who are doing the delivery than me personally visiting them one by one. You can send a message to all of them saying that they will be paid 10 million gold coins just for attending the meeting. As for your cut for going through this ordeal would be 30 million. Do mention that what I'm offering can change the futures of their respective organizations for the better. So, summon the Hydra. Odin put the letter inside the envelope with an unhappy face. What the hell is this psychopath trying to do? He wants all the 7 heads of the Hydra to be present in the same meeting? Who the hell does he think he is? If not for the 30 million, I wouldn't even do the job. Who would have thought that one day, I will be the one to arrange the meeting with people I detest the most? Every single one of those bastards is no different than a blade in my gut, he said as his fists clenched tightly. Let's hope whatever the force standing behind him is offering to all of us is something worth all the effort, or my reputation will take a big fall, thought Odin, and decided to proceed to the arrangements that he needed to do now. The 1-week period was indeed a short amount of time to get all the remaining heads together, so he had a lot of work to do. 1 week later, northeast area of the Rukon district, where a grand valley full of tall trees and wildlife was situated. A large open ground full of lavish green grass was left untouched. Despite being so many small cities and villages surrounding a 6-kilometer-wide forest, no one had claimed or inhabited this place as if it was an unspoken rule or command of someone powerful. Tap, tap, tap. The hooves of the multiple monster steeds resounded in the dark of the night amidst these tall trees and bushes. A small army of 200 people varying from species to species strode across patiently. All of the members were highly geared individuals with a variety of weapons and armors. The luxurious carriages that were carried by the steeds leaked an oppressive aura from the inside. As if a predetermined arrangement, there were 5 more of such forces coming from other directions of the forest at the same time. When the envoys finally reached the exit that led towards the open ground, all the sides sent a flare signal up in the sky. The next second, a pathway appeared in front of all these forces and they walked inside, only to see a well-arranged open ground that had thousands of chairs and refreshments arrangements done inside an illusion barrier that hid the inner property from the public eyes. One by one, all the forces reached towards the center and all the influential figures that sat inside the carriages came out from their respective ends. As the 6 forces walked with their respective leaders, each of whom was a peak grandmaster being, the surrounding was filled with an oppressive aura, and even the envoy from each of the sides found it hard to breathe. The 6 peak grandmasters then walked towards a wide table that had 7 heads of a hydra, a sea monster with 7 snake heads carved out that pointed towards the respective seats. The group of peak grandmasters consisted of a muscular black-haired elf, a female succubus, a red-skinned human, a purple demonkin, a black tengu, and a green snakekin, all of them dressed in lavish and regal clothing, since they were the figureheads of their respective organizations. And there was one person who was already present near the table, but still hadn't taken his seat, as if he was waiting for all the other 6 figureheads to be present there. All of them looked at each other and released their murderous aura and killing intent at each other, as if wanting to rip each other's hearts out. However, the next second, all of them raised their right palm in the air and spoke loudly at the same time. "Hail Hydra!" The echoes of their voice filled the 2-kilometer space under the illusion barrier as all of them took a seat at the table. The host of the meeting, Odin, who awaited the arrival of his fellow members of this table, let out a sigh. In Rukon district, the Hydra represented the top 7 rulers of the underworld organizations in their respective specialties and trades. The moniker of one of the head of the Hydra was given to each boss for different fields like brothel network, smuggling, gambling, and money laundering. Only the fighting arena, assassination, information gathering mercenary organizations were left out, as they traded in far open business compared to theirs which didn't see the light of the day. All these figureheads were the undisputed rulers of their respective professions. The last time all the members of the Hydra gathered here was 5 years ago, when I dethroned my predecessor. And now I am the one who has called out the other heads, spoke Odin in a kingly voice. This better be worth our time, or I for one will take out all my anger on you. spoke the succubus peak grandmaster whose body barely had the sensitive spots va assets covered under small clothes. Anyone who saw her would get enamored by the lovely, seductive and bodacious body of this beauty. Shut up, Violetta. Do you think I would call all of you here if it wasn't for a good reason? The one who wanted to meet all of us at the same time is someone worth all the effort. And what he intends to offer us is something beyond comprehension even for me. Explained Odin. So where is this person you speak of? The letter mentioned that he comes from a great force that wants to cooperate with all of us together. Even those noble clans aren't as courageous as this person. Asked the human swordsman. Swoosh. I'm here. Thanks for coming. A ghastly voice resounded as if a ghost suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and a mage donned in black robes came to be out of thin air. What the hell? I'm a peak grandmaster mage myself. How did I not sense him? Thought the green snakekin mage with a bewildered expression on his face. Not only him but the rest of the heads except Odin had a similar thought at the same time. Despite being on the same level as the mage, none of them even felt his presence here when they came. My name is Loki, pleased to make your acquaintance, said Loki as he introduced himself. I've done my part. I hope you remember your promise, said Odin as he looked at the mage. Loki nodded and gave a light smile to all the other members of the Hydra. This setting looked like a wardable of generals surrounded by their respective forces gathering together the night before the battle. So tell us, Mr. Loki, why have you summoned us all together? You even went as far as to have Odin contact us and use the only one chance he has to summon all the 7 heads of the Hydra. Asked the purple demonkin. It is very simple if I am to be honest. What I offer to all of you is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It is something that great personages of your standing and authority in your respective trades would definitely want to grasp as soon as offered. And all of your organizations would greatly benefit from this deal I'm offering you at a silver platter. Spoke Loki in a grandiose manner as he gestured his hand and the scepter up in the air, as if he was bestowing the blessings of the gods on these 7 heads. Let's not beat around the bush. Just tell us what kind of deal you're offering, said the Tengu who had 2 black wings on his back as he folded his arms and looked at the mage with a suspicious gaze. Loki on the other end took a deep breath and spoke in a magnanimous and joyous voice that filled the entire area, reaching to the ears of every single being present here. It's simple, he said and quickly released all of his dark aura filled with dominance and bloodlust. From now on, all of you are my servants. The area under the illusion barrier was completely dead silent as soon as everyone heard Loki's proclamation. The 1,200 soldiers and all the 7 heads of the Hydra were left speechless. Not a single soul present here would have imagined that the one to call out for the meeting was so daring to say that all the peak grandmaster people were his slaves. PFFTT. Pft. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha. You're good at making jokes, Mr. Loki. Funniest thing I've heard this decade. Ha ha. Laughed off the heads and following them all their forces followed. This indeed felt like a big joke to everyone present there. But as soon as the echoes of the laughs subsided, the place of the meeting was filled with an extremely chaotic and deathly aura. Oye. That was neither a funny nor humorous joke. We will let you retract your words and rephrase what you said, said the elven swordsman as he directed murderous intent at Loki. What's the meaning of this? What kind of bullshit are you spewing? Asked Odin in an infuriated tone. My. Mr. Loki seems to overestimate himself. Doesn't matter who his backer is. We are not some weaklings that can be oppressed or commanded like someone's henchmen. Even those saints the nobles think 10 times before saying such nonsense. The power we combinedly wield can rival the majority of factions and clans, said Violetta, the succubus. There was indeed a force who tried to control us because they had a second-stage saint in their clan. Do you know what happened to the Saint her clan? They're all buried in the ground now. So you better watch your mouth, warned the Tengu. To all these deathly warnings and giving in to the oppressive aura, instead of dropping on the ground or cowering in fear, Loki replied with a coy smile. And why do you think I summoned all of you here? The best way to kill a snake is to cut its head. And I have all the heads present here. Enough from the clown. I'm putting a word out. 500,000 for this bastard dead. 1,000,000 alive so I can teach him some manner first. The human from the 7 heads banged his fist on the table, putting a bounty on Loki's head after he was thoroughly infuriated. Why so serious? Spoke Loki, still maintaining his complete cool as if he had no fear of death. Forget the money. He put my name and reputation in the mud. I'm killing him with my own hands, shouted Odin and charged at Loki as soon as he got up from his seat. Such a shame, said Loki, and the very next instant, completely dark space filled the area around the round table. All the other peak grandmasters felt like their bodies froze on the spot in a microsecond and they couldn't even move from the place. This was exactly the ability used by Ajak, the Dark Summoner, when he killed Khan inside the 12th floor of Bromner Dungeon in Flavit City. Void Realm. The spell created by using black magic, one of the strongest magical elements in the world, was something that could instantly stop an enemy for 10 seconds as if the time itself was frozen. Odin shuddered in fear as soon as he noticed the changes in his body. He quickly tried to burst his aura and break through the physical pressure on him. But forget using his aura, he couldn't even move his eyes at this moment. Stab, 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 stab. For Shadow Blades, one of the abilities Cyril inherited after getting merged with the undead summoner, were finally used after so many months. The last time he used this ability was when they fought against the Magma Drake dungeon boss. 2 big holes were created in both Odin's shoulders and the other 2 in his thighs. Each hole was big enough to pass a man's arm right through them. As soon as the 10 seconds passed, Odin's body dropped on the ground as a splatter of blood spread around the thrall. Impossible! That's dark magic! Shouted the Snakekin mage, who was also a peak Grandmaster mage. All the other heads of the Hydra felt an impending doom looming over their heads. Loki was on the same level as them, but none of them could even react or move a muscle after he used that ability, as all of them were brought in a dark domain where they couldn't see or feel anything. And as soon as the spell ended, Odin, who was one of the strongest members of the Hydra, was lying on the ground, completely incapacitated. All you care about is money. This district deserves a better class of criminals. And I'm gonna give it to them. Tell your men they work for me now. This is my turf, said Loki in a ghastly tone, as if he was a grim reaper giving the command to someone whose life he was about to take. They won't work for a freak, groaned Odin and spat blood out of his mouth. Freak? Asked Loki as he looked at Odin's 2 giant hounds, a black and white one, who were charging at him from a distance as soon as they saw their owner injured and in a near-death situation on the ground. Both of them were 2 meters in height, just like the pack of wolves that attacked Khan as soon as he arrived in this world. Loki cast 2 lightning spells and attacked both of the dogs in a second, killing them before they reached halfway. But he didn't stop there either. He used the King of the Dead skills and quickly made both of the broken and charred dogs into his undead creatures. Growling, growled the White Hound. Oh, they say they're hungry, said Loki with a grin. Why don't we cut you up into little pieces and feed you to your pooches? And then we'll see how loyal a hungry dog really is, spoke Loki in a sinister tone as a wide and creepy smile appeared on his face. After he telepathically ordered the dogs, the hounds charged towards his direction again, but this time, their target was not him but Odin, their master who fed and raised them from so many years. Odin was a hand-to-hand brawler, but after getting caught by surprise and having his limbs decommissioned, there wasn't anything the peak Grandmaster could do at all. Forget using any skills, he could barely use any mana in his body, as if the shadow blades that Loki plunged him with were stopping his body to harness any of his strength. Arr! Screamed Odin as his hounds started tearing his flesh and biting off his body as if they were starving for decades. Meanwhile, all the other 6 heads were still rooted on the spot, not daring to attack Loki lest they themselves suffer the same fate as him. At the end of the day, he wasn't their comrade, but just an acquaintance they had to tolerate out of obligations. Loki turned his head and asked with a creepy smile as Odin's wails filled with agony resounded in the surrounding. Now then, who's next? He asked others, sending a shiver in their spine. You're mad, shouted the elf as he took out his sword and took a defensive stance. Ha ha! Chuckled Loki and replied in a mischievous tone. See, madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push, replied Cyril, and his deathly aura erupted from his body, quickly putting immense pressure on everyone present here. He can't use that ability quickly again. It must have used a lot of his mana. All of us need to attack him now, shouted the Snakekin mage, and all of them pulled out their weapons. A swordsman, an archer, a mage, a whip user, an assassins, and a spearman. All the remaining heads of the Hydra got into battle mode and gave each other an understanding gaze. Swoosh, swing, crack. All of them used their job-specific skills and attacked Loki, who was now surrounded by the group of peak grandmasters. Boom! But before their attacks could even land on the mage, a dense dark barrier appeared in a second and covered Loki from all sides. The huge explosion threw off Odin's now dead body far away and obliterated the hounds just with the shockwaves. What the hell is this guy? Asked Violetta, the succubus, as she took back her whip after sending a long waves of mana attacks at Loki. The darkness barrier, which was a skill that Khan and his 300-plus subordinates failed to break during the fight with the undead summoner all those months ago, was now used by Cyril. Use light elemental attacks, shouted the Tengu, the archer of the group. All of them were experienced veterans, so they knew what was the weakness of dark magic. Boom! Boom! Another ground-shaking ripple filled the surroundings as multiple aura attacks infused with light elements bombarded and cracked open the darkness barrier in a couple of seconds. But before Loki even got a chance to attack, his body was wound in a whip with lighting element, and his heart was plunged by an arrow. Stab! Stab! A sword and a spear stabbed his chest and stomach the very next second, not even giving him a chance to retaliate. Get away! Shouted the Tengu archer, and a charged shot full of compressed wind element left his bow and burst open Loki's head. The seemingly dangerous mage who killed one of them swiftly was killed in a matter of seconds after the impeccable and perfectly timed coordination of these 6 grandmasters. Cyril, the necromancer subordinate, had died. Inside the secret site where the meeting of all the heads of the Hydra was held, one of the heads had fallen, but so did the man who killed him. Loki's headless body that was impaled with a sword and a spear dropped on the ground on both knees. His figure appeared like a fallen knight on the battlefield. Humph! What a fool! Thinking that he could take on all of us just because he could use the dark magic. Spoke the peak grandmaster archer, who blew up Loki's head exactly when he was caught off guard and didn't have a chance to resist. Yeah. He got Odin only by surprise. This guy was overestimating himself, said the elf. One by one, all the heads started making fun of Loki, who acted too impulsively and lost his life. Wait! Suddenly spoke the green Snakekin mage. What? Asked the Demonkin head. Something doesn't feel right, he said, and the next second, his eyes were left wide open. Check his body and see if there's a core present in it, shouted the mage as a sudden realization hit him. The elven swordsman who stood the closest quickly pulled out his sword and cut open Loki's heart, only to find it hollow. He. Suddenly, a familiar ghostly voice landed on their ears as all of their bodies jolted in fear. As expected of a mage. You sensed it so quickly. Loki's eerie voice filled the area again, instantly petrifying all the soldiers who stood far away. Even the grandmasters were unable to sense the source of the sound, as if it was present everywhere. Impossible! We already killed you. How can you still be alive? Queried the succubus. Ha ha ha! How can you kill me when you can't even sense the real me? Asked Loki in a sarcastic tone. That was just a fake body I created using human corpses. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, the ground surrounding all the forces belonging to the respective heads of the Hydra cracked open as dozens of crevices formed in few seconds. Swoosh, swoosh, shing. One after another, dozens of magical formations appeared on the ground under this 2-kilometer-wide isolation barrier and completely surrounded the 1,200-plus soldiers. Rah! Krah! Hundreds of undead soldiers ripped open the ground and emerged like how an army from the underworld erupted before the doom. Just in 5 minutes, more than 3,000 undeads, out of which 300 were master-rank skeletons va monsters given the aura they were emitting came to be and surrounded these forces who already took a defensive stance. Since all of you were shameless enough to attack one individual by 6 people teaming together, I shall hold no more and fight you with my own numbers. Loki's grim voice filled the area. Boom! A big crevice was formed at the eastern end of this dome, and a gigantic figure of a skeleton mage that was 15 meters tall burst out of the ground. This enormous and towering figure with a skull that had burning red eyes terrified every single one of the soldiers. The gigantic skeletal mage with red and white mage robes and a crown on its head looked at all the enemies. 5 grimoires were floating in the air beside the skeletal figure, who appeared like a grim reaper gave everyone, including the Grandmaster's, goosebumps all over their bodies. What the hell? I thought he was only using the black magic to summon those dogs as undeads, but he's actually an undead lich, spoke the snakekin mage. The one before them was Cyril in his true form. It had been nearly 5 months since he appeared in his real form, and now, the 20-level suppression in stats and mana capacity was finally lifted as he was no longer under the limitations placed by metamorphosis ability. His entire appearance looked like a certain majestic undead lich who ruled the tomb of Nazareth. And as soon as Cyril in his full power released his dark black aura filled with bloodlust and darkness element, even the Grandmaster felt like their legs were giving out. It hadn't even been 10 minutes since they killed Loki only to find out that he was actually an undead lich. A very high-leveled one at that. All these peak Grandmasters felt like they were at least level 120, but the oppressive aura that was released by the undead seemed like it was from someone of level 130. Now let me show you my real power, he said, and all the grimoires shone bright red and started rotating around his body in a clockwise manner. Everyone in formation! Shouted one of the heads as all the forces consisting of every fighting class got themselves in a defensive formation, ready to face the undead skeleton army under the command of their leaders. We just killed you. We can do it again, said the demonkin. To his words, Cyril only let out a ghastly chuckle. You cannot kill me. I am a being above your mortal lives. I am entropy. I am death. I am a dark summoner, declared Cyril in his grim voice. His eyes flickered red, and from all the gaps in the ground that created a pathway to the skeletons to appear previously, jumped 5 to 7 meters tall monsters. Following them were a dozen giant monsters varying from amalgamations of different monster species. These were the peak master rank monsters he created recently. Some looked like dinosaurs while others like mammoths. Attack! Shouted the elf, and all of their forces charged at the skeleton army for a full-scale battle. Cyril's army of the undead, which consisted of varieties of species, let it be monsters, humans, and demi-humans that outnumbered the opposition by 3 times, frantically attacked the defenders without the care for getting damaged. A volley of arrows and bombs, followed by the destructive magic spell and the defensive skills from the tanks and knights activated at the same time. Boom! Crack! Ear-deafening noises filled the battlefield as soon as the first wave of attacks landed on the undeads. This was an army of trained and organized fighters. Despite belonging to different sides, the forces of the Hydra were already well versed in coordinating and assisting each other as if this was something they trained for years. Even the forces belonging to the fallen Thrall side were managing themselves well with just Hank, the right-hand wolfkin, ordering them. In just the first attempt, 500 undeads were broken to pieces, obliterated and burned on the spot. Their torn, splintered bodies and the sticking flesh lay across the battlefield. You alone can't stand against all of us, spoke the Tengu archer. To this proclamation, Cyril, whose towering figure had put the fear of God in the opposite side soldiers already, spoke in a solemn tone. Who said I am alone? Replied Cyril as his skull let out an eerie chuckle. Boom! The very next second, a chaotic blue aura suddenly filled the other end of the battlefield and jumped in between the defensive formation of the Hydra soldiers. A tall and ripped figure adorned in battle armor and gauntlets released its aura of a peak Grandmaster fighter and suppressed the people fighting from the back. It was none other than Odin, who was now summoned by Cyril as one of his undead soldiers. Boss Odin! Shouted Hank. But what stood in front of him wasn't his leader but an undead with lifeless eyes. Despite having holes put into his body, the undead Odin now stood as powerful and domineering as before. Shatter! Odin punched the ground and shattered the 200-meter area with his skill, creating havoc inside the defensive formation as he targeted the healers of the group first. The undead Lich's army didn't have weapons or armors. They were simply dead species made into walking zombies by Cyril. So they only had the numbers but not fighting skills. Even the tall monsters only had the advantage of their bodies and brute strength, not job-specific skills. Cyril then grandly gestured his bony hands towards the air. The very next second, an ancient magic formation appeared in the sky, and the entire battlefield under the illusion barrier was covered by the bright red magic formation. "This world shall know pain," spoke the necromancer, and the magic formation made with mana dropped on the ground. Let it be the soldiers or the army of the undeads, all of them were covered under it. But unlike what everyone thought, not a single one of them was harmed or felt like anything happened to their bodies as the red glow around them disappeared into the thin air. What is this?" asked Violetta. Crack, crack, rah, bear. What happened next sent shivers even to the 6 grandmasters, because the scene in front of them completely caught them off guard. After the magic formation dispersed, nearly 1,000 bodies rose up. These were all the fallen undeads their armies destroyed. But what boggled their minds were the new additions. These were the dead soldiers who just died while fighting the undeads. And now they belonged to the enemy side. "Damn! That's cheating!" shouted the Snakekin mage. "Tormund, go! Handle Odin. We will take care of this bastard," said Violetta to the Tengu archer. But instead of targeting the grandmasters charging at him, the ones he attacked with his dark magic spells were the hundreds of common soldiers. He telepathically ordered his peak master rank monsters who were on standby to charge and break the first line of defense. Their job was to break the formation and let the weak undeads breach inside the enemy ranks. The Shadow Blade's skill assisted these forces, and all the protection barriers cast by the enemy mages broke in seconds. Cyril then quickly cast his darkness barrier. Bang! Unlike before, even the light elemental attacks failed to destroy the darkness barrier. Rather than getting destroyed, it only broke the outer layer of the barrier, while Cyril spoke in a domineering and grim voice as if he was looking at mere ants. "Ha ha ha! You still don't get it, do you? Inside this battlefield." His burning red eyes lightened up far brighter than before as he spoke again. "I am a god." The loud noises of the crackling ground, clashing weapons and bodies filled the battlefield as a bloodied scene of gore and chewed-off bodies colored the night red. As soon as the peak master rank variant monsters created by the necromancer subordinate came into the play, the once seemingly well-organized army of the Hydra heads was discombobulated in a matter of minutes. Cyril, who was now being attacked by 6 peak grandmaster fighters who were as strong as him prior to the moment where he revealed his real form, now felt like a bunch of tryhards who were barely living up to their reputation. "Impossible! I don't believe this. How can he be stronger than all of us combined?" said the elven swordsman, who was using all of his highly destructible sword attacks that we normally blow everything to smitten and not even leave a single body part intact. This was the same case for the rest of the heads of the Hydra, who were also bombarding the darkness barrier with their respective class-specific attack skills. Huff! Huff! The demonkin warrior breathed heavily after running out of stamina. "Arr!" screamed Tormund, the Tengu Grandmaster archer whose heart was ripped out by Odin. Just a minute ago, he was fighting the Thrall undead on even terms by using his skills and long-range attacks, but as soon as over 100 unique rank monsters who were comparable to a peak master rank fighter came into the fray and completely outnumbered him. The 1,200-plus trained warriors were now reduced to only 500 surviving members who were already on their last straw after their fallen comrades also became part of the undead army and attacked them instead. All these people had proper fighting skills and abilities than being just mindless monsters. And after taking out the groups of healers Va druids first, their losses kept increasing. Only the peak master rank and beginner grandmasters of the group were barely managing to hold off the enemy while protecting their allies. But another soul-shuddering scenario happened as all the remaining soldiers lost the will to fight as soon as the undead Lich cast another ancient magic formation that previously turned the fallen dead soldiers as part of his army. Again. "We're dead. We are all dead," shouted one of the soldiers as he threw away his weapon when he saw the magic formation dropping from the sky again. A similar scene occurred on the different ends of the battlefield at the same time. How is that even possible? He's just a necromancer at the end. Even the records never said anything about an undead Lich being this strong, said the Snakekin mage. Although this undead mage was on the same level as them being a peak grandmaster, he was thoroughly oppressing all 6 of them. And just now, another one of their group had fallen. "Keep his body and core intact. I have other uses for him," commanded Cyril to Odin. And then his gaze landed upon the 5 enemies in front of him. "Like I said before, inside this barrier. I am a god," said Cyril in his grim tone. "Nonsense. Even a necromancer can't become this strong," shouted the Snakekin. "Yes, but I am a variant. Even my liege doesn't know this fact about me. But the more people I kill, the more undeads I have in my army and the higher-ranked soldiers I have as my summons. The powerful I become with time by using their cores and mana stored inside their bodies as a source to strengthen myself. And you lot aren't just my enemies, but you are all my benefactors who brought these high levels and rank-trained fighters for me. At this very moment, I am as strong as a semi-saint mage." "Ha ha ha!" laughed Cyril, his crackling laugh through his skeletal body sounding completely inhumane. "Now let's end this quickly," he said, and for the first time his target shifted to the Grandmasters, and all the undead soldiers who were fighting with the normal soldiers quickly changed their targets and started running towards the group of Grandmasters. Boom! Shrill. One after another, the group was besieged by hundreds of monsters from different sides, and the Grandmasters were forced to fight as a team and use their most effective abilities to fend off the enemies. The space was already locked by the undead Lich, and the horde of these 3,000 monsters and additional soldiers from their side made it nearly impossible to escape. Violetta, the succubus, glanced at the Lich, who was just standing behind the darkness barrier, which they couldn't even scratch at this point. His sinister appearance sent shivers under her spine again. And from behind that barrier, the necromancer was throwing dark magic spells and blades at them, which were cracking the protection barriers cast by the Snakekin mage. Not just her, but all the other heads of Hydra understood how terrifying Cyril aka Loki was as an enemy. This guy got stronger over time, had an extremely huge supply of mana, and his spells and skills increased in damage output as the number of the undead soldiers rose. Although each of them could fight against 1,000 enemies at this point. The problem wasn't their lack of experience or skills, but the unending horde of monsters attacking them. And as soon as the numbers of the undead decreased, the Lich would cast another one of those ancient magic formations and raise the fallen bodies to create more undead. As if reveling and thanking them to kill the monsters, Cyril chuckled as he summoned the Calcium Throne, aka the throne made out of bones and skulls. A 10-meter-tall throne made by using thousands bones appeared behind Cyril as he majestically sat and enjoyed the scene in front of him. What was happening now took a lot of strain on the bodies of 6 heads and skills as they were depleting their mana and stamina with time. Crack! 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 Suddenly, the 100-meter-wide protection barrier burst open after the constant bombardment of brute attacks from the enemy forces. Swoosh! The horned succubus, whose assets were jiggling during the fight, swooped her epic rank whip and destroyed over 100 undeads with her powerful lightning element-infused attack. Now that the protection barrier broke, all of them were forced to a close-range battle. "I concede. I will serve you as long as you spare me," declared the green Snakekin mage as he raised both of his hands in the air to show that he was surrendering to the undead Lich. His mana had run out, and unlike others, he wouldn't survive any longer. All the other heads, who also felt cornered at this moment, felt indignant, but they had no choice left either. What's the use of pride if you're dead? I concede too. I will serve the mighty Lich. Please spare us. One by one, all the remaining heads surrendered in hopes that they will get to live on. Ha ha ha! Who said I need you alive to serve me? laughed Cyril sarcastically. "You're more useful to me dead than being alive," he said, and ordered his army and the new undead warriors to attack the group of grandmasters again. This time, Odin also jumped into the fray, and the sheer pressure and impact it created on the remaining ones also broke their formation. For the next 2 hours, Cyril thoroughly enjoyed and commented merrily on the struggle out up by the grandmasters. Their skills and mana were proving useless as time went by, and rather than having his undead kill them, he was using the soldiers to tease and exhaust the grandmaster. And as a member of Hydra fell, he summoned them as his new grandmaster undead, and his own strength increased with time. Just like Jugram, who got stronger over time with the more people he killed, Cyril was also a terrifying subordinate himself. He was a force to be reckoned with because if put against 100,000 enemies, the necromancer subordinate could turn all the enemies as part of his army, and even when his undeads fell, he would still get a fresh supply with the enemy soldiers. He was a walking, talking hack who would turn your own forces as his and then use your allies to kill you instead. Finally, when he killed all the heads and made them his undead soldiers, Cyril felt a huge burst of mana flowing inside his bones. Other than himself, nobody else knew how he was becoming this strong. Not even Khan. "Thanks to the undead lich my master used to create me, I can absorb a small portion of mana and energy from all of my subjects. Now I will be able to even kill a semi-saint easily," spoke Cyril in his grim voice. At this moment, even though he wasn't comparable to a bona fide saint, he was still half as strong as them. Compared to all the other subordinates of Khan, Cyril was only second to Rudra in terms of combat power Va skills. Even Omega Va Jugram had nothing on him despite them being very powerful variants themselves. Cyril let out a content sigh and looked at the group of 500 soldiers he had left alive after he targeted the grandmasters. They were all still surrounded by his monsters, but there was no fight occurring. And after killing their heads and making them his personal servants, the undead lich was no different than someone who had all of their lives under his palm. Cyril's gigantic and mighty lich was now seated on his throne and had the 6 heads of Hydra kneeling in front of their master. "I demand an applause," he ordered, and the next second, all the new Grandmaster undead warriors shouted in their hoarse and cryptic loud voices, "All hail the undead king!" As the battle between the two sides stopped after a one-sided victory, a gigantic figure of an undead lich was seated on his throne, made up of skulls and bones like an overlord. The remaining soldiers of the Hydra group were now completely surrounded by the nearly 4,000 undead soldiers. Only those at intermediate Va Master rank managed to survive the onslaught. But many of them knew that it was because the enemy didn't attack them with all their numbers but rather kept them busy and toyed with them for some reason. Cyril, the necromancer's gaze then landed upon this group of remnants, who barely had any strength and spirit left to fight back. Those who served as second in command to the heads of the Hydra, "Walk forth, if you wish to live, that is," commanded the undead king. His ghastly and tyrannical voice resounded in the battlefield, instantly sending shivers in spines as if it was a decree of an absolute ruler. The undead army created a path towards their master, and the remaining soldiers were left with no option but to follow this command. Soon, 7 figures walked out of this battle formation. 3 of them were intermediate rank grandmasters, were beginner grandmasters, while the remaining 2 were peak masters. This group also included Hank, Odin's most trustworthy subordinate. They all walked towards this grand figure of the undead lich while being scared to death, but had no choice lest the enemy leader decided to kill them on the spot. Their lives were now in his hands. Cyril on his kingly throne had a solemn expression while being surrounded by the 6 peak grandmaster heads of Hydra, who stood like his own generals on right and left, 3 on each side. All of their bodies were riddled with visible wounds, and they no longer had any form of sentience on their countenance. Their eyes were glowing red just like the undead lich, but they stood like his royal guards who would do anything to protect their king. The right-hand men finally reached in front of the undead lich and kneeled in servitude to their new master. "You should have understood why I called you out, right?" asked Cyril in his grim tone. The group of people only gave a nod, understanding the reason why they were spared. The next second, the necromancer summoned a fist-sized, round-shaped lotus-like object in his hands. It was exactly the Blood Oath token he asked for back then when he met Khan in the training facility. And now he was finally going to make use of it as if he already planned all of this ahead of time. I give you a choice. Bind your lives to me and become my loyal subjects who will work for me the rest of their lives or die right here. But know this. You will die just like these people and become part of my army. And even if you die, there won't be a heaven or hell for you. Your fates will be tied to me for eternity and you will never see the so-called afterlife. Declared the undead lich. May I ask, what about the remaining soldiers? Asked a blue Tengu species mage. Oh, I have no use for them. The fewer witnesses, the better. Replied Cyril as his eyes glimmered bright red. Rawer! The next second, the undead army that was on standby and surrounded the remaining soldiers charged at them. This time, the full force of 3,000 of undead monsters and soldiers attacked the remaining forces and just in a matter of minutes. All the remaining forces were wiped out in a massacre. And right in front of these 7 individuals, they too were turned into an army of undeads and skeletal soldiers. This even terrified them even more as they too felt like the same fate awaited them should they choose to refuse. We will serve the might undead king, shouted Hank, who had already seen Loki's power firsthand too many times. After the Blood Oath ritual was done, on the terms that completely restricted the 7 individuals and had no form of rules imposed on Cyril, the undead lich decided to speak again in his domineering tone. From now on, you will handle the respective underground business. You will serve me like your life depends on it. And Hank, you will take Odin's place. From henceforth, I want an ample supply of strong individuals who died recently. And if they're not part of any cemeteries you control, I want their details since morgue and burial services will still be used during the process. Elaborated Cyril and gazed at the remaining 7 living individuals. Know that all of you are alive as long as I have a use for you. I am neither your leader nor someone who cares whether you live or die. I spared you because it will save me a lot of hassle to control the already established forces and networks of the Hydra in this district since you all served directly under these generals of mine. If I see that you are failing in your tasks and can't keep up with the demands, you know what will happen, he declared. As for the rest of the underground forces, there will be new leaders who will take charge and replace the previous heads. Those will be people you will report and serve in my absence. Do you understand? Asked Cyril. Yes, my liege, spoke a female succubus who once served under Violetta. From now on, the Hydra no longer exists. This organization is under new management. Spoke Cyril as he released his full aura of a High Lord and an immeasurably dense pressure filled the 2 kilometers of space under the illusion barrier. And from this day forth, it shall be called. Paused Cyril as all the 7 servants froze on the spot after feeling the undead lich's murderous aura directed at them as their master uttered the new name of their organization that was made of 7 crucial forces that controlled the underworld in Rukon district. The 7 deadly sins. On the same night after the hostile takeover and placing his new slaves in charge of the now-gone Hydra, Cyril returned to his original human form and entered the bedroom room after the easy-peasy battle he had today. Today, he also realized his own potential. If anything, he learned for sure that if he's given 10,000 soldiers, he could fight and even take down an army of 100,000 enemies. The only things that restricted him at the moment were his levels and rank, which limited his mana pool since summoning the undead took a lot of mana and the requirement grew with the number of undeads he could summon at once. Currently, he could only summon 1,000 soldiers va monsters in a single. But for the future battles where he needed more numbers, he had to steadily build his resources. He laid on his bed despite having no need to eat or sleep, a part of him excited for the upcoming future. I reckon you've succeeded. Suddenly, a black shadow emerged from the corner of the room, and a tall and handsome man donned in black epic rank assassin gear appeared in front of the necromancer. Yes, I did. Everything went as we planned, said Cyril to the man with green eyes whose left side of his face was covered in a black mask. It was Ronan, the rogue subordinate. Good. But I still think that Omega Va Jugram should have been there as a backup, said Ronan with a solemn expression as he folded his arms. I wanted to test my thesis about my own strength, and it was proved to be true after the battle. Now compared to everyone, I only fall short behind that snake. In an open battle, maybe only Jugram has a chance to tie with me. And that too if I don't kill him too early," replied Cyril with an upstuck expression. Ronan rolled his eyes in annoyance. "What's with you trying to be our master's most powerful subordinate? You should focus on being more useful instead," he said. "Ha! You don't understand. Master and I both have a high affinity with dark magic and darkness elements unlike you guys. What I want to do is provide him with a greater source of power in the future," explained Cyril with a content face. "You do you. I'll do it my way. But first, let's talk it out with others. I've already called upon them to meet in the training facility. That bull and the spider are already waiting there," he said and disappeared into the air. This whole ordeal started way long time ago before the current event of Cyril fighting and overtaking Hydra. When Cyril was still dealing with Logan and had been receiving dead bodies from him, Ronan had been tracking him down without even the necromancer noticing. He was a true rogue with skills of assassin's va thief class jobs, so even Cyril had a hard time sensing him. It wasn't because he had doubts about the mage trying to betray their master, but to make sure that no unnecessary trouble came their way and nothing could be traced to their name or the company. And on the very day when Cyril in his Loki form met Odin, Ronan asked for an emergency meeting between the generals and Omega. 15 days ago, a meeting in the open training ground that could hold 200 people fighting at once, stood all the subordinates including Blackwell Va Oliver who had been practicing their skills here recently. "So do you all understand why it must be done? We can't be negligent anymore. We all have a purpose and a meaning behind our existence. Since Master is in his magic training period, we can't disturb him. This is also a very crucial time for him. So what do you all say?" asked Ronan to his fellow subordinates. Omega nodded and spoke. "Yes, I agree. The last time, we managed to survive against the pressure from the Chamber of Commerce only because Master is a semi-saint fighter and we had support from those vampire clan members. Otherwise, we all would be dead a long time ago." A stoic voice followed behind the words. "And we can't openly kill people either. We are no longer fighting in dungeons and there are hundreds of people who can kill us easily just with their aura alone. And relying on anyone's mercy or their help is not a good thing," spoke Jugram. "I second that. I wish I had a human form like you lot. I can't even appear in public and fight beside Master because I'm simply too big," said Blackwell in his deep and majestic voice. The Guardian Knight subordinate had the least of time to shine in battles recently. The next moment, Ronan spoke in a serious tone. "Let me tell you something. Over the month when I was still hiding inside the shadow of that vampire heir, I came to see how big their clan is. How many people they have under their command, how many resources and weapons they have. Their clan ancestor didn't even blink twice before commanding to kill a 5th stage saint that day. I was barely able to keep myself hidden from his eyes. Compared to them, even calling ourselves as ants would be an overstatement." Gasp. "Are you sure?" asked Oliver in his creepy voice. To his question, Ronan only nodded. Hence, Ronan created a perfect plan on how to use Odin, whose background he found out after a few days of information gathering by contacting some intel gathering networks and assassination organizations by paying a hefty amount. And that was exactly why Cyril paid 10 million extra for the deal he made with the Thrall Grandmaster. They wanted him to put Loki as a priority customer so it would possible for them to get all the other heads of Hydra in the same place together. Because one thing they realized after Ronan explained the vastness of the power balance to them. Because of that, the consensus reached a conclusion that they couldn't just rely on wealth or the reputation of their company or noble clans they had partnered with. That if they don't have a force of their own and a vast network of people and soldiers working for them, any one of the noble clans or factions could easily wipe them out and they won't even have a chance to struggle. And with no other choice, they had to do a hostile takeover and run these underworld mafias and organizations with their own hands. Rather than overthrowing Hydra, taking over their established empire was the best choice. And behind all of this planning va scheming, Ronan was the true mastermind. He was so cautious that without Cyril even knowing, he, Omega, Jugram va Oliver were already present at the surrounding area of the battlefield in case Cyril lost and died. It won't be easy, and I hope all of you will play your part. It's about time we start, spoke Ronan and took a deep sigh as he continued. Creating an empire for our master. A new day arrived and all the subordinates gathered again in the morning inside a luxurious and wide tea room inside the manor. All of them dressed in their formal attires, enjoying the aromatic tea served by the maids. So who is going to handle which department? Asked Ronan to his fellow subordinates. Wait, shouldn't we worry about taking command of all of their business network first? Because wouldn't other semi-saints or a saint try to take over? Asked Cyril in his eerie tone. Not exactly. The reason why I even suggested taking over Hydra was because Rukon district is only the 69th most important district in Rathna. And that's why the strongest people trying to control it are peak grandmasters at best. All the stronger forces have their priorities set on the main districts where there are many resources and money to be earned. Also, a big power struggle and the majority of their strongest fighters are required to be present to keep their rule intact. To powerful clans and saint-rank individuals, ruling this district won't even get them pocket money. And that is why it's perfect as a starting point for us. Explained Ronan. After his explanation, a deep and echoing voice interjected. But that's still just 5 of us. And the healer guy can't even fight, let alone rule over a department. He's not made like us, said Jugram as he gave a look to Armin, the healer among the 6 generals. Yes, I agree. I'm no help when it comes to fighting or commanding people. I'd rather prefer to stay indoors and continue my alchemy practice. There are still tons of potions and alchemy recipes I have yet to master and invent, replied Armin in his white and green suit. About that, I did keep a souvenir from the fight with the Hydra heads for our master to use, said Cyril with a light smirk. Next, Omega spoke calmly. Let's do this then. Rather than taking one section under us, we gather all of the networks under a single rule. Like a council overlooking an organization. And then we will assume command and expand when we all have gotten the hang of it. He suggested. Agreed. It's not like all of us are well versed in running businesses efficiently. All our knowledge comes from master. But we do lack experience when it comes to running an underground criminal organization, said Ronan. For the next hour, they discussed many things about how to quickly assume command and safeguard their positions as the new rulers who would control everything that once belonged to the Hydra. Inside the Batcave, Khan was exercising by lifting heavy weights while limiting his physical strength to that of a master rank person, which also pushed his physical limits at the same time. After watching his improvements while practicing various magical spells after studying them, he had noticed that rather than using all your strength Vamana, limiting them while performing these training sessions actually created a very solid foundation for him, and with time, he was seeing drastic improvement. Let it be his weapons training or magical studies. Tap, tap. What is it? Asked Khan in his calm yet regal tone. A mage donned in white and purple robes stood in front of him and spoke. Master, I have something you could use, said Cyril, and the next second, a body that came out of his space ring lied on the floor. Khan was taken aback and quickly asked with a surprised expression, Where did you get this? Who is this guy? Cyril looked at the body of Tormund, the Black Tengu Peak Grandmaster Archer who was also one of the heads of the Hydra. Someone who came in my way, rather than making him an undead. I thought it would be best to give his body to you, replied Cyril with an evil grin. Do not worry, master. There were no witnesses, assured the mage. Fine then, said Khan, and the next second, a 3-meter-tall subordinate who had a skull for the head while 6 long and pointy spider-like legs came out of his back appeared in front of the duo. Oliver, you ready? Asked Khan to the ranger subordinate. Currently, Oliver and Blackwell were the only Lord-rank subordinates out of the 6 generals. Khan really didn't get a chance to find suitable specimens to merge with them, who also needed to be peak Grandmaster rank beings for these 2 generals to rank up. Yes, Master, said Oliver in his stuttering voice. Currently, he was the scariest looking out of all the others since he still retained the traits of the Nymph Dungeon floor boss Khan had merged him with. Merge, commanded Khan as used the divine ability and began the synthesis process. After 30 minutes, A dreary screech filled the underground training facility as a 6-meter-tall monstrous creature, with nothing but a white skull and torso with spiky bones protruding from the limbs and 6 large feathery wings, stood in front of Khan. This was Oliver in his new High Lord form. "Looks like he evolved into a new variant species as well," spoke Khan as he took a good look at Oliver, who looked like a horrifying demonic creature that would even give grown-ups many nightmares for months. The 6 black wings, the blood-red claws and legs, and the glowing red horns on his head made Oliver a completely new form of being Khan hadn't seen or read about before. "System, give me his details," said Khan. "Following are the details of the subordinate named Oliver." The system provided the details, but as soon as Khan heard the new variant species Oliver had become, he was rooted to the spot from the shock. "Holy Mother of," said Khan as soon as he regained his mind. "Tell me again." "His species," ordered Khan to the system. To his order, the system replied in its usual lifeless tone. "Species: Horus, variant Garuda." In front of the amalgamation form of Oliver, whose upper body looked like a mixture of a white-colored xenomorph from the Alien movie franchise with 6 large black wings, Khan stood with an awestruck expression. After hearing the name of the variant species, he fell short on words about how to describe his amazement. Unlike the majority of the ignorant people from Earth who knew nothing about outside world cultures, Khan was someone who liked learning and exploring different aspects of foreign cultures. He often read about them in novels and watched references in animes. And then his curiosity always led him to find authentic sources. Although Khan wasn't an expert, he knew enough superficial information such as common knowledge of Asian, Greek, Norse, and Egyptian mythological creatures. And Horus was one of the very famous Egyptian gods. But on top of that, he was a variant of the Garuda species. In Asian mythologies, Garuda was also the ruler of the sky and the first primordial bird in many countries as per their cultural lore and beliefs. Could there be a connection to my previous world? Thought Khan. Is it because I used a peak Grandmaster Tengu that he invoked a rare Garuda bloodline? System, show me all of his stats, abilities vs skills again, ordered Khan with a thoughtful expression. Following are the statistics for the subordinate named Oliver. Name: Oliver. Species: Horus, variant Garuda. Job: Emerald Archer, unique class. Rank: High Lord. Level: 121. Strength: 3,759. Agility: 4,690. Dexterity: 4,237. Defense: 2,619. Mana: 2,380. Following are the physical skills VA abilities. Jetstream, S rank, active. Allows the subordinate to create air pressure in a 5-meter area to propel himself in the air with high-pressure wind. Garuda Wings, A rank, passive. Gives the subordinate a 200% buff in speed and agility while flying. The maneuver speed during flight increased by 100%. Horus I, S rank, passive. The subordinates can sense and locate everything in a 2-kilometer radius while flying. All the minute details will be clear and visible to the user. Note: previously gained heat sense via sonar radar skill by the subordinates have been merged under this skill and the rank has been raised. Skylord, SS rank, passive. The subordinate holds control over the wind element and magic. All the wind elemental attacks and spells can be controlled and negated by the subordinate regardless of the caster being an ally or a foe. Guardian of the Squadron, S rank, passive. All flying allies within 2-kilometer radius of the subordinate will receive 50% increases in speed and maneuverability. Allies capable of flight will receive a 30% increase in attack damage while attacking from the air. Note: all of the listed abilities can be upgraded with rise in levels and rank of the subordinate. Following are the magical skills VA abilities. Aerostorm, S rank, active. Allows the subordinates to create hundreds of mana arrows and shoot in multiple directions. All the arrows can be individually controlled by the subordinate. Descent of the Sun, S rank. Active. Subordinate receives 200% attack buff and magical skill damage during noontime. The more time under the sun spent by the user, the more increase in attack damage. Stormbreaker, SS rank. Active. Allows the subordinate to control the weather and cause storms, lightning and tornadoes in 2-kilometer radius. The direction va density of the tornadoes can be controlled by the subordinate as per his will. Note: all of the listed abilities can be upgraded with rise in levels and rank of the subordinate. The system recounted all the new set of skills of the now Emerald Archer subordinate who took a big leap in strength and abilities. Even if I had absorbed that Tengu's abilities first, I still wouldn't have managed to get all these amazing skills. Maybe next time. Spoke Khan. He knowingly didn't absorb the abilities as a test because he wanted to see if he didn't use ability absorption divine ability on the specimens before merging, how would that affect the subordinates while ranking up. And to his surprise, Oliver ended up invoking a bloodline effect and even achieved a unique class just like Omega, Armin, and Jugram. After getting a gist of all the skills, he knew one thing for sure, that Khan currently lacked an air force of his own, and with the skills Oliver gained after being merged with the Tengu Archer, he was definitely worth investing in. Jetstream Va Garuda Wings ability basically made him a fighter jet when flying. In the future, Oliver had the potential to be like Superman as far as flying was concerned, creating sonic booms during the flight. Horus I ability was similar, like a surveillance drone doing a recon from the air. And with hive mind skills, Khan could share the vision with the subordinate and see everything through his eyes while gathering information and looking for someone or something. Skylord skill made Oliver comparable to Khan, who had Sword Battlemaster skill, which was also comparable to a Saint rank skill. The only difference was that Khan could control the swords of the enemies while Oliver could control wind elemental spells and attacks. Guardian of the Squadron was a perfect skill for a leader of a squadron who provided the entire troop with buff skills just like Jugram Va Blackwell. The former gave attack damage buff to allies while the latter gave health and defense buffs to the team. Arrowstorm was just like Khan's Sword King skill, which was comparable to a Saint rank skill just with the arrows in Oliver's case. Descent of the Sun skill made Oliver even a bigger threat in an open battle when they fought enemy forces during the daytime. And the more time he spent fighting under a bright sun, the deadlier he would become. Similar to Cyril Omega Va Jugram, who got stronger with time with the number of enemies they killed in an open battle. And then there was the Stormbreaker skill. Oliver was Khan's version of Storm from X-Men, who could also control weather at her own will. The only difference was Oliver's range was currently limited because of his levels and rank. Luckily, he used Bao Va arrows and not an axe. Otherwise, he would demand, "Bring me Thanos." With that skill name alone. Khan was now content with the upgrade his ranger subordinate received after the synthesis. "Take a human form," he commanded to Oliver. A minute later, a mature and charming-looking man with hair parted from the middle that covered both sides of his face with luscious locks stood in front of Khan. His height, build, and appearance matching to his master. But the most notable aspect was the two black wings on his back that made him look like a mixed-blood hybrid between human and Tengu species. Khan took out an epic rank gear for the archer and handed it to the subordinate, as well as the epic rank bow used by Tormund, the peak Grandmaster Archer. Khan looked at the now dressed subordinate, who gave an aura of a honed hunter. "Thank you, master," spoke Oliver. His eerie and soul-shivering voice had turned into a pleasing and soft tone, contradicting his original appearance. "All right, time for you to come out of hiding and get to work like others. There are no free meals, so you better prove your worth from now on," spoke Khan. "Yes, master, I shall do so. It's also about time for me to," spoke Oliver as he at his broad black wings and continued. Soar in the sky. 2 months later. In a big 3-story building surrounded by bustling city life, a meeting was held inside a large hall filled with 50 people and 20 guards. At the end of this hall were 7 thrones, and except for the last one on the far right end, 6 peak Grandmaster personas were sitting on these thrones while exuding bits of their kingly and regal aura. A mage donned in black robes, a 3-meter-tall silver werewolf, a golden-haired half-breed Tengu with 2 black wings, a 4-meter-tall giant redhead man, a frail-looking gray-haired human. A long green-haired man had taken up their seats on these 6 thrones. In front of them were 2 long tables where 20 people sat on each side, all of them dressed in warrior gears and mage outfits. A middle-aged dwarf dressed in noble attire knelt on one knee as he spoke to the 6 people occupying the thrones. We have finally taken over all the other organizations that opposed us after your lordships assumed the command. Thanks to the might of the Sins, no peak Grandmaster who can oppose us or tried to take over our businesses and networks is alive. His humble tone received only praise from all the attendees who came to the meeting. The next moment, the silver werewolf, whose head was of a wolf with an upper body full ripped and bulging muscles along with legs of a normal human, stood up, speaking in a domineering voice. Then tell me our total strength and the profits we've gained over the past 2 months. I want the detailed information and how we can expand over. Ordered the silver werewolf. Lord Raiden, currently we have 280,000 people working for us if we combine all the different sections and organizations that work for us. And after tallying the numbers, expenses and emergency funds we need from the previous 2 months, the current profits are 13 billion gold coins altogether. Replied the dwarf in a respectful tone. Gasp. Shock. Multiple gasps full of surprise came from the people belonging to various species in the large hall. None of them were able to believe the amount of money they heard just now. Good enough. Still, it's only enough to be comparable to a prestigious noble clan. We won't hold off if a true superpower decides to meddle in or tries to oppress us in the future. We need security measures, especially against semi-saints and saints, spoke Raiden. Suddenly, one of the occupants of thrones spoke in a calm demeanor. Raiden, killing a saint is currently beyond our abilities. Even the 2 warships we've acquired recently cannot kill a saint. But it should be enough to kill a semi-saint easily, spoke the green-haired man dressed in black assassin clothes. Scorpion, it's exactly our ignorance that dooms us in the end. You can never be too careful, replied the wolfkin, whose bright red eyes and long claws were visible to see for everyone present in the meeting. Author. Reference art for Raiden in chapter comments. Check it out. My. Why are you guys getting worked up for? It's not like we don't have a semi-saint of our own. It won't take our lord even 6 months to become a saint. So take things easy, will ya? Spoke the blonde Tengu, who was a hybrid between humans and Tengu species. Silence. The entire hall went silent. After having their eyes wide open with another shock, the members sitting on the chairs, who were part of the line of command, started whispering amongst themselves. The dwarf, who was shivering having goosebumps on his body, shifted his gaze to the silver-haired mage donned in the black robes. Lo, Lord Loki, is this true? Is Lord Icarus speaking truth? Asked the dwarf in utter disbelief. The building where this meeting was being held was the current headquarters of the 7 deadly sins. And the people sitting on these thrones were none other than Omega and the 6 generals in their alter egos as the leaders of this underworld organization. Except for Blackwell, everyone had assumed command of this organization and had been running different sectors under their lead. Ever since they took over Hydra and united all the separate organizations under one banner, they had plenty of their fair share of others trying to kill them or overtake their positions. And many people, including peak grandmasters, were no exceptions. Many leaders and forces of the opposition organizations who were in a power struggle came after the 7 deadly sins and tried to decimate it to the ground so they could rule over the power Hydra once held in Rukon district. But none of them in their wildest dreams had an idea that, unlike Hydra, the 7 deadly sins actually had a line of peak grandmasters working together while sharing the same goal. In the past month alone, the sins had killed off 13 peak grandmasters fighters from the enemy side and took their bodies as trophies while only sending their heads back to their organization. The only mercy they showed to these forces was that they gave them one final chance to surrender and join their organization in servitude. And all those who refused or tried to revolt were massacred in a bloodbath. The sins killed more than 30,000 people in the past 2 months who opposed their rule. And amongst this group, two monsters were feared by everyone the most. One being none other than Loki, who never spared a single life or gave them a painless death. While the other one was Dante, who was the alter ego of Jugram, the berserker subordinate amongst the general. Dante was nicknamed as the Sin of Wrath. This man alone killed an entire army of 2,000 enemies in a single night. And when the battlefield was cleared, only the charred and torn bodies were left, as if all of them were killed by a demon who came straight from hell. No one ever found how these two did it, but by looking at the aftermath, nobody dares to question their strength. Raiden, the alter ego of Omega, was already nicknamed as the White Yaksha by the enemies. Given how fast he was on the battlefield and how his katana, a type of sword none of them ever heard of, swiftly cut all of the enemies in two with a single slash. All they ever saw was a white flash passing through before their ultimate demise. And Scorpion, the alter ego of Ronin, was something nobody ever wanted to fight in a head-on battle. Because every time this assassin fought, a dense white fog filled the battlefield, and all the onlookers ever heard was the pitiful and pleading screams of the enemies, as if they were scared to death before actually falling to his daggers. Icarus, the alter ego of Oliver, was someone who had shown everyone how dangerous a flying enemy can be, because he once burned down the headquarters of an enemy force by attacking from the sky while being completely untouched by their arrows and magic cannons. The sins had caused terror between all the criminal organizations and underworld rackets in just 2 months alone. And soon, the 7 deadly sins rose to a level of power and authority that even the Hydra in its decades of history never achieved. Every single one of these peak grandmasters was many times stronger than others of the same levels and ranks. Yes, if you're lucky, you will meet our master, Lord Zeus, replied Loki in an elated tone. At this very moment inside the Wayne Manor, a young man who was completely in a trance, while controlling 4 different elemental spells at the same time, released a burst of red-black aura that shook the entire room. His face turned joyful as soon as he heard a notification in his head. Congratulations to the host for breaking through to intermediate rank magician. When the morning arose, a man donned in violet aristocratic clothes was enjoying his aromatic tea while basking in the gentle sun rays, while sitting in an open balcony of an enormous manor. Beside him sat an old man with a white beard, reading the newspaper as he took small sips of the tea in between. "Not going to train today?" asked Albestros as he turned a page and continued reading. "I feel like I should take a day off. I haven't been very active with our company's work, so I think it's about time I went to overlook how things have been going in my absence," replied Khan. Albestros then looked at the young man again with a curious gaze and asked in a soft tone, "Something feels different about you. It's like the aura around you seems more refined and on a different level. It's the quality of mana in you that has undergone some kind of transformation," spoke the Grandmaster Blacksmith. "Haha, I see. So even you, who has only a decent understanding of magic, can feel the difference. I wonder what would happen if there was a mage to be around," chuckled Khan. The next second, 3 sets of footsteps were heard as 3 individuals walked up the stairs and entered the balcony. "What is it?" asked Khan to the new additions. The 3 individuals were none other than Omega, Ronin Vasseril. "My lord, we wanted to discuss something with you," said Omega. "Then speak," he said. "I'm not sure if it's a good idea to say it here in front of Sir Albestros," spoke Ronin in a benign tone. "No worries. He's one of us already," said Khan with a gentle smile. "My liege, there's something we have been doing in the past 2 months without your knowledge. We did not wish to disturb your training or burden you in any way, so we chose to withhold this information from you," said Cyril in a stern voice. "Speak already. I don't have an entire day," said Khan in an irritated tone. For the next half an hour, the 3 subordinates started telling Khan about how they used hidden identities and overthrew an underworld organization while killing their rulers and taking over their established empire, businesses, and network, and how they have been fighting and killing those who opposed them, including leaders of the opposition who tried to come in their way, such as peak grandmasters. Both Khan and Albestros had their jaws dropped on the ground. "You did what?" His tone changed to that of anger and his countenance became that of an annoyed man. Why would you take such a big risk? What if there was some bigger force backing them? Even a first-rank saint could wipe you all out, reprimanded Khan. His gaze then landed on Cyril, glaring at him with a deathly stare. Is that why you asked me for the blood oath token that day? I thought you only wanted to kill a couple of grandmasters, but this is way too insane, shouted Khan at the necromancer's subordinate who was hiding behind Omega, avoiding direct eye contact. My lord, we took all the necessary measures to ensure that it would not be tracked to you or the company. You too understand how important it was given our current situation. Even some no-name clan can wipe us out in a few hours given our current situation. This was a necessary risk we had to take for setting our foot in the capital. Now, we're not at least some nobodies who can be easily messed with, explained Ronan. After another long discussion, Khan finally cooled off his head and threw his hands in the air as a form of surrender. Fine, although the risk was too big. It was indeed necessary. We can't rely on our allied noble clans when things got worse anyway. If someone powerful targeted us, even these clans will avert their eyes in a different direction. In the end, the one we can rely on is ourselves, he said with a long sigh. Even Albestros agreed to their approach because he too had seen the disadvantages last time when they were targeted by the Chamber of Commerce and the first-rank Saint Mage from the Vanderite clan. After everything was explained, Khan decided to return to his position as the chairman of the Bloodborne Company. After breaking through to intermediate-rank magician, something inside Khan has changed for the better. He now had a sense of inkling with mana, 3 times clearer than before. Unlike the past when he could sense the mana in the surrounding only by becoming a semi-saint rank swordsman, he could now feel the mana present in nature and felt an innate connection that allowed him to utilize it on his will. After 2 months of strong training regime in various weapons and magic spells, his weapon mastery in spears, halberds, lances, whips, shields, and archery had risen to peak master rank by practicing many combat techniques. He was already at grandmaster rank in swordsmanship, daggers, and battle-axe, so there was no need to worry about these 3 sectors for now. And by eating SS rank cores and mana ores on a daily basis, Khan rose by 12 levels and he was now level 150. Along with the rise in rank as a magician, his effectiveness range increased to 20 meters from where he could harness the mana in the surroundings. And the total damage output of his magical skills and spells also rose by 30%. When the evening finally came, Ronan told Khan about how they kept bodies and cores of all the grandmasters they killed in the past 2 months. And after all the subordinates gathered in the underground training facility, Khan started absorbing their skills and then began merging these specimens with the subordinates. In his case, neither their skills nor eating their cores could help him level up at a fast pace or improve his rank, so he decided to use all the bodies to help his subordinates as all of them could directly level up and get more skills after the synthesis procedure. But even now, there were no suitable specimens for Blackwell Va Armin this time either. And forcefully merging them with an unsuitable specimen would only adversely affect their classes and the future potential, so Khan had no choice but to leave the Guardian Knight Va the Pathfinder class subordinates as it is. When midnight finally came, a grand welcome ceremony was held in the main headquarters of the 7 Deadly Sins. That night, in their main hall, the 6 subordinates were sitting on their thrones and above them was a higher platform where a middle-aged man clad in black light armor and an epic rank bow on the side of his own throne sat with a solemn look in his eyes. His gray hair on the side of his head and the long beard that had multiple gray strands were visible to see to everyone present in this celebration. Hundreds of high-rank warriors, Va mages who worked as the chain of command in this organization, raised their glasses full of wine and alcohol collectively as they shouted together in a zealous tone. "We pledge our loyalty to Lord Zeus." 1 hour ago, in the 3-story building which looked like a normal business company's headquarters in a busy street, where no one would attach too much importance to it, a meeting between the elite powers of the underworld was held. This was the main office of a construction company in name, but in reality, it was actually the true headquarter of the biggest criminal network in the entire Rukon district, which spanned for 200 kilometers. "Do you know the lords have summoned us tonight?" asked a centaur dressed in violet armor. "No idea," But since all the managers from each branch city have been summoned together, it's definitely something important, replied an elven mage. Tap, tap, tap. 2 lines of soldiers in black and red armors, geared with spears and swords, created a pathway among the crowd. Everyone present in the main hall bowed in respect towards the 6 individuals who walked at a steady pace towards the end of the hall. These were the Sins who held the command of this organization. Even now, no one knew anything about the 7th Sin, but nobody dared to ask because there was always a throne vacant for that person, and all of these people who previously served Hydra could only assume that the last one didn't wish to reveal themselves yet. As soon as all Omega Va the 5 generals stood in front of their respective thrones, Cyril in his Loki form cast a spell and placed the 6 thrones on both sides of the room, dividing them into a group of 3. And the next minute, he summoned another giant golden throne carved with dragon heads on the armrests, as he placed it where their seats were previously located. All the members in the gathering were surprised, but no one dared to utter a word. Omega in his Raiden form walked forth and spoke in a loud and stoic tone as his gaze shifted to all of the members who now served them. Tonight, we summoned all of you for a very important reason. This night, we wish to let you all meet the real ruler of the 7 deadly sins. All kneel in front of our master, our Lord. Lord Zeus! Declared Omega vehemently, and all the Sins in their respective forms knelt on a knee. Without daring to question anything, all the top members of the organization gathered here kneeled in the direction of the pathway created by the soldiers who were also kneeling on the ground. Boom! An insurmountable and highly oppressive aura that was filled with absolute dominance and tyranny landed on their bodies. Even the tall and giant Botur race individuals present in the hall felt their exoskeleton armors that were the extension of their own body parts cracking under this pressure. This was the species with the highest physical defense in the whole empire, but even they were having a hard time keeping their consciousness intact under this dense black and red aura that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Step, step, step. In the middle of the pathway, a middle-aged man donned in a black epic rank gear set for archers walked with his arms folded behind his back, like an emperor appearing in the main council hall. No one, including the Sins, dared to lift their heads as the man walked towards the golden throne at a slow pace. Some of the members were already sweating heavily under this oppressive force, which made them feel like a mountain was placed on their shoulders. The middle-aged man took a seat at the golden throne and placed his right legs on the left knee, his back against the soft red cushion and the right elbow supporting his weight. His right palm placed under the chin while he gazed at all the kneeling members in the hall. These were the top dogs of the underworld, all of who were the main figureheads of their respective organizations and ruled a city in this district like kings while having thousands of people at their beck and call. But now, all of them were kneeling in front of this one man who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Although they had previously heard about Zeus, no one had actually believed the rumors of a semi-saint rank individual actually being the main figurehead of the 7 deadly sins, which had 7 peak grandmasters as the main leaders already. "You may all stand up," spoke Zeus in his compelling tone that sent chills to everyone kneeling in front of the semi-saint. All the mages present in the crowd who had a high affinity with mana had their eyes wide open after they finally managed to sense his strength. Semi-saint. No, he's already close to breaking that threshold and becoming a true saint, spoke an intermediate grandmaster mage woman present in the crowd with complete disbelief in her eyes. The words she blabbered subconsciously landed on everyone's ears, and the whole crowd went silent again. To them, their leaders were the peak of the mountain as far as the strength levels in this district were concerned. But now, the prideful man in front of them was already a league above. And not just that. He was close to entering the legendary saint rank realm of power they had only heard about in their entire lives. At this moment, since the Hero of Darkness title was active, his aura was 3 times stronger than usual on top of already being very ferocious. So all the mages in the room felt the aura as comparable to someone who was about to enter the saint rank. This sudden revelation fortified the beliefs of all the powerhouses in this organization that Zeus was indeed their true boss and the one they served was a truly powerful being. "Tell me everything about how things were handled in my absence," commanded Zeus to the normal members present in the hall. For the next 1 hour, many people revealed that the Sins killed off enemies in their headquarters with perfect planning, leaving no room for escape and without causing too much attention. And how traces of the skirmishes were taken care of without anything tracking back to them. Cyril also told Khan telepathically that he took care of the dead bodies and turned them into his underlings. Ronan later explained how they planned and ambushed the Grandmaster opponents by 2 or 3 of them attacking together and finishing them off very quickly. Khan approves of their method because that way, their victory was always assured. After everyone was done with their explanations, Zeus spoke in an authoritative tone. I know the means that were used to make you all disband your previous bosses and organizations and forcefully work under us. And I also know that many of you still resent us for it. The blood oath token can only make you our slaves but cannot buy your loyalty. Spoke Zeus in his deep and kingly tone. But do know that if you keep serving me and the 7 deadly sins with your complete loyalty, to make our organization reach bigger heights, I assure you that every single one of you will see riches and power 10 times more than what you currently wield. And the feeling of enslavement you currently have will feel like a blessing at that time. So tell me, do you want to just stop at this small district, or do you want to work your way up and rule like you own this goddamn capital? Tell me, commanded Zeus in a tyrannical tone, to power-hungry scums like them who would sell their family for power and authority. The words spoken by Zeus sounded like a divine symphony. This man already gave them a glimpse of a future where they were one of the biggest powers. He actually had the strength to back his claims for the future, and everyone present in the hall already felt that potential in their bones. Since there was no end to greed, all of them shouted collectively in a zealous tone, "We pledge our loyalty to Lord Zeus." When all the members serving 7 deadly sins finally came to terms with their predicament and decided to follow Zeus and his claims for the future, the celebration continued for the whole night. Not everyone had believed his claims and still had misgivings left in their hearts, but no one could do anything as all of them were already marked as slaves after the blood oath token ritual, and they could no longer try to exact any form of revenge. Even plotting against Zeus via the sins would mean their inevitable death. So all they could do was nod their heads and pretend that they believed his words. Even Khan knew that actions spoke louder than words, so he knew that it will take some time until his claims became reality. Zeus then explained his plans to expand their networks and even get other underworld organizations such as battle arenas where a betting system was allowed and assassins organizations under their control. The one rule he set up for all the branches of their organization was no one apart from the target was allowed to be killed. Especially not innocent children. This was the only kindness he could offer after assuming the command. He had come to terms with dirtying his hands after the events that happened 3 months ago. And knowing that anybody with enough strength could kill him with a flick of their finger, he had no choice but to adapt and also discard the moral code that had shackled him from time to time. Khan was willing to be the bad guy if it meant his survival, gaining power and authority. Just that he had a bottom line he won't cross for now. And that way, the old Khan who came to the world of Vantria nearly 9 months ago was no more. At the time of noon the next day, Khan traveled using a flying ship to a district named Konoha that was situated 500 kilometers away from his place and was now seated in a 5-star hotel, which also facilitated the private and secure meetings. Omega in his human form had escorted him like a bodyguard, and in front of them sat a pair of vampires with long silver hair. "What is it? You said it was urgent," asked Khan to a young vampire on the other side of the table. Behind this young man was a female swordswoman standing like a guard. This was none other than Sale and Vivian. This morning, when the bright and sunny day arrived, Khan suddenly received a message from Sale via the Jade Medallion. It had been more than 2 months since he last spoke with the vampire heir. But the conversation took a different turn when all Sale told him was to come for a secret meeting no matter what. And his tone had already worried Khan because Sale wasn't the kind to rush things if they weren't important. "Brother Khan, I have to tell you something important. It's something that will be announced to the public of the whole empire by next week, but I'm giving you a heads up," replied Sale. "What is so important that got you riled up?" asked Khan curiously as he sipped the fragrant tea in his hands. "It's the Emperor's chosen tournament," spoke Sale with a somber expression as he folded his hands together. "The what?" asked Khan and placed the teacup on the table. His curiosity piqued as soon as he heard the word Emperor. Don't tell me you don't about the Emperor's chosen competition? Asked Sale. Humph. What could a country bumpkin like him know? Scoffed Vivian in a prideful tone. Shing. However, the very next second, a curved blade was placed on her neck and the figure of a man with red eyes and ashen hair who was dressed in a white suit appeared behind her. Boom! A silver aura filled with bloodlust spread in the room as the man finally spoke in a grim tone. Dare to talk about my lord like that again and my blade won't stop next time, warned Omega, who previously stood behind Khan. Aish, why do you keep bringing this bitch to our meetings? Even now she hasn't changed her behavior a bit, and I don't have too much patience these days, said Khan as he gave a deathly glare to Vivian, who was already rooted on the spot, unable to move under Omega's bloodlust skill that could put every enemy in 300 meters radius into a fearful state. Ah, my bad. Don't mind her. I'll be careful not to bring her next time, said Sale as he gave a helpless expression. I guess you don't know since you're not that old enough. It's a competition that's held once every 50 years in the Empire. And the one who started this tradition was the first emperor himself, explained the vampire heir. And what does that have to do with me? I don't have time to play some children's games. Besides, isn't the imperial rule gone 100 years ago? So why is the tradition created by the first emperor is still allowed to exist? Khan spoke with a bored expression, completely unfazed with this sudden explanation. Ah, the ignorance, said Sale as he face-bombed himself. It's not a children's game, but the most prestigious competition in the Empire, which is used to determine the new generation of leaders who will make a significant impact on the fate of the Empire. And the winner gets the biggest reward one could ever ask for, elaborated the vampire heir with excited eyes. Anyone, as long as they're a citizen of this empire, can participate in this competition. And if I remember correctly, last time when the tournament was held, over 80 million people took part in it. The only restriction is that the participants must be under the age of 30 regardless of their origin or species. Oh, that big huh. So what's the prize? Asked Khan after hearing the information. Sale, on the other hand, gave him a greedy and smug expression as he spoke in a hushed tone. As soon as Khan Va Omega heard the reward for the winner, both of them were petrified and had their eyes wide open. Khan quickly banged his hand on the table and replied excitedly, "You son of a bitch. I'm in." The meeting carried on in a room protected by various isolation barriers that prohibited the sound and anything happening during the meeting leaving outside. Sale was still explaining how the whole competition came to be and why it was deemed as the most honorable and prestigious competition in the history of the Empire from the past millennia. The Emperor's Chosen, a competition held once in 50 years, set by the first Emperor, Rathnar the Conqueror. After forming the Empire, the first Emperor started this competition once every 50 years to encourage and find truly talented individuals amongst the younger generation. Anyone with enough talent in fighting regardless of their rank, species, levels and origins had a fair chance to compete in this competition. And the true prize was so attractive to everyone that even the most powerful noble clans would drool after thinking about it. And naturally, it overtook the entire empire by storm. The only restriction set by the first emperor was that only people under the age of 30 were allowed to partake in this competition, and there was no need for a powerful Va influential background. But as the centuries passed and the first emperor died, it became a power game for the noble clans, and the general populace became sure of one thing, that no matter how talented one was, the one to win this competition would always be someone amongst the noble clans and factions who had their young generation trained since the age of 5 and numerous resources provided so they could rank up and increase their levels before crossing the age of 30. And that was exactly why all the noble clans and factions prioritized training their heirs and potential leaders, not only for strengthening their respective clans but to find a hidden gem who could potentially win this competition. And the main reason being the mind-blowing reward that the first emperor set for every winner. Under the imperial decree, the winner of this competition would get the most alluring reward that hundreds of powerful noble clans could only dream of. And the reward was a fiefdom, a section of the empire that the winner could choose and then rule for the next 20 years as their own regardless of their experience in ruling a land. The imperial family would even aid the winner in running and learning about how to rule and prosper the fiefdom. This was an ironclad decree which was also followed by the successors of the emperor because not only it helped them maintain an image of kind rulers who offered everyone a chance of rising in ranks and changing their fates but also control the powerful noble clans and factions, who would choose to side with them in order to win the competition or becoming close to the imperial family. But even after throwing away the imperial rule 100 years ago in the Great War, this tournament was still kept by the newly formed government. Naturally, they should have abolished this tradition, but at the end of the day, the various government sectors themselves were run and controlled by these noble clans and factions. And hence, the top powerful forces would still get a chance to gain a new land every 50 years, providing them a legit and unquestionable reason to rule a land and use its resources and money to build their own strength. But as things stood, everyone knew how only the noble clan representatives, such as their chosen heirs or the genius individuals who are the strongest of their generation, will always get the prize like the previous competitions. So to the normal population, it was more like entertainment, and nobody actually believed that one day, a commoner like themselves would come to become the chosen champion. Still, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them, and also this competition helped many people go from a beggar to a tycoon whenever it was held. And the main reason was something everyone living in this empire had the access to, and that was the betting system. Betting was legally allowed in this competition, and many people rose in wealth, while many lost their entire life's fortune during this competition. The notion of Lady Luck turning a person's fate was indeed applicable in this competition, so everyone welcomed it with open arms. After Sale explained everything to Khan, who qualified to participate in this competition, the two of them had a thoughtful conversation. Father said that this is an opportunity for you to not only rise in fame, you also will get recognized in the entire empire for the decades to come. Many influential figures of the three factions, including some of the saints, once participated and are still renowned. Even we had some of our ancestors win the competition in the past, and now you know how strong our clan has become thanks to them. So he told me to specifically contact you and give you this, elaborated Sale, and took out a golden tablet with an emblem of two swords and a shield in the center. This was the emblem of the Vanderite clan, to be precise. What's this? Asked Khan. This is a token of recommendation. This was a rule applied from the previous competition. It allows you to skip the basic and normal city-level qualifying rounds and directly fight in the district-level qualifiers throughout the empire. So in other words, instead of competing from round to round like 80 million people, you will start fighting right from the matches made for the top 10,000 people. Trust me, it will save you tons of hassle, said Sale as he handed the recommendation token. Thanks. I appreciate the help, said Khan, and put the token in his space ring. When Khan returned to his manor in the evening, he sat on a sofa in his bedroom while holding the recommendation token in his palm. My lord, are you sure? Wouldn't participating in this competition create unnecessary risks and enemies for us? Asked Omega, who stood like a guard on the side. I only said that in front of Sale to not raise suspicion. But I think there's more to all of this. This competition. This token. Something is definitely going on behind the curtains, replied Khan in a calm demeanor. The next second, his eyes turned resolute and a cautious expression appeared on his face as he spoke in a solemn voice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. The following day, after Khan met with Sale, in one of the central cities of the capital Rathna, a grand meeting was being held inside a ginormous castle. In reality, this entire settlement that was as big as a city, had millions of people with thousands of houses and businesses, was actually the main headquarters of the neutral faction. The headquarters of one of the three most powerful factions in the Rocco's Empire was 5 times bigger than the headquarters of the Vanderite clan that Khan visited a long time ago. And at the central region, the titanic White Castle that was surrounded by legions of soldiers and defensive weaponry held some of the most important figures of the empire. Inside this castle, over 1,000 people ranging from different sizes, races and species sat on different platforms. Each of these figures wore luxurious and noble attires, while plenty of them excluded the aura of a powerful being. In the grand meeting hall, An old but long and white-bearded tigerkin was sitting on a throne at the end of his long hall. The aura that leaked from his being was kept at minimal, but even so, anyone who even looked at this 3-meter-tall orange tigerkin could instantly gauge the strength of this almighty being. A 7th-stage saint. This tigerkin warrior was indeed of the 3 strongest people in the entire empire, and also the leader of neutral faction. A tall and firm bearkin knight in completely red knight armor, who himself was a 5th-stage saint himself, spoke in a loud tone. "In the presence of faction leader Stalin, I commence this meeting," spoke the bearkin knight, and took a seat on a throne of his own on the right side, sitting amongst the other 30 saints who were divided into the group of 2, all of whom were some of the most influential people in the empire. The old but still in incredible physical shape tigerkin finally spoke in a domineering tone, his voice resounding in the entire hall where thousands of people sat on multiple levels of platforms on both sides. "The reason why I have called all of you here today so urgently is to relay key information to everyone. An opportunity that affects our entire faction's future for the next generations to come. As some of you might have heard of it already, the date for the Emperor's Chosen that comes after every 50 years has been finalized," explained the leader. The entire crowd went into a heated discussion as soon the faction leader, who was no weaker than Sale's grandfather, relayed this information. After a minute, he spoke again with resolute eyes as he addressed all the top clan leaders and members of the faction. "As you already know, we have only 2 candidates who managed to reach the rank of a semi-saint under the age of 30, fitting the requirements and qualifications to become our representatives and compete in this competition. This is an opportunity for us to gain new territory which can help our entire faction prosper for decades to come. And once our rule is solidified, we will naturally gain full control of that region as per the rules set by the imperial family of the past. No one from the government, regardless of which sector or faction they are from, can object as per the previous arrangements. Last time, it was the demi-human faction who won the competition 50 years ago, and now there are only 2 suitable regions left for us to seize, either of which can bring enormous and unimaginable wealth given their location and resources. And hence, I have chosen the most capable of the younger generation to represent us. I want all of you to wholeheartedly welcome our 2 champions," commanded Stalin, and clapped his hands. The next second, the giant entrance door to this hall was opened with a creak, and a troop of soldiers clad in black and golden armor with spears marched inside the hall. Their loud thuds filled the surrounding area as all the members present looked at the middle of this formation where 2 humanoid figures walked in sync. When these 2 figures finally came close to the throne of the faction leader dressed in regal clothes, both of them knelt in respect in front of the tigerkin, who had a pleased expression on his face. One of the figures was a long black-haired and blue-eyed young woman dressed in a pitch-black sorceress attire, while the other was a silver-haired young woman of the same age, donned in silver and red armor, who had 2 red horns coming out of her head. One of them was long while the other was short, indicating that she was a half-breed demonkin. Both of these young women were of the same age as Cassandra of the Michelson clan, also renowned as the Raven Sorceress. Celine of the Armitage clan, praised as the Dual Sword Saintess. Both of you are the most talented geniuses of the neutral faction. Your talent in your respective classes exceeds many of us when we were of your age. And thus, I have decided to entrust both of you with the future of our faction and represent us in the Emperor's Chosen competition. Do any of you have any objections or misgivings?" spoke Stalin. "No, Lord Faction Leader," spoke both the young women in unison. Their pleasant voices chimed in the hall while showing compliance to all the authority figures. "Good. The competition will start exactly after 1 month from today, so in the meantime, both of you will be trained by the mighty saints of our faction. Not only by those who specify in your relevant classes, but the others of different classes to help you gain more battle experience against different types of enemies. Do you understand?" spoke Stalin in a kind tone. "We understand." Again, both the young women replied together. "I expect great things from both of you," said the tigerkin leader, but his countenance turned serious the next second as he gazed at the other saints and the 1,000 members of the faction. "And there's another important announcement I have to make here. Should either Cassandra or Celine win the competition and ultimately pave the road for the bright future of the faction, said the faction leader and stopped his words. He took a deep breath and continued his words in a kingly voice that sent the entire hall into chaos. The winner shall become my successor. After the sudden announcement by the kind-looking faction leader, all the members, let it be saints, normal clan leaders, or the two women in question, were completely baffled. The faction leader's words caught everyone present in this grandiose meeting hall that sized over a kilometer in length by surprise. Nevertheless, as one would expect, the entire hall went into disarray, and many people, including the saints who sat on their respective thrones, started shouting and discussing in between like a ragtag bunch, causing a ruckus in the streets. "We refuse. Why must you make such a rushed decision, Lord Faction Leader?" said a sixth-stage human mage saint. His facial structure matched slightly with Cassandra, who was one of the candidates for the position. "Yes. Both of them don't have any experience in leading a faction of tens of millions of people at all," exclaimed a red demonkin sixth-stage swordsman saint who sat on the opposite side of the former. Following their rebuttal, dozens of other saints also voiced their opinions and disagreement as if their life depended on it. Shrill. The next moment, however, the kind-looking tigerkin released a tyrannical aura, and even the air present in this hall froze as his dark red aura suppressed and forced everyone to sit back on their seats. The blazing heat around him gave everyone a sense of dread while encapsulating their bodies under his immense pressure. Even the sixth-stage saints such as Cassandra Celine's fathers felt couldn't move an inch under this insurmountable pressure. "Do you all really think of me as a fool who would make reckless decisions? Perhaps I should treat you all like how that bloodsucker Alistair treats the Pureblood Faction Council," said Stalin as he gave a deathly glare to everyone except the two young women. "Apologies, Lord Faction Leader, but it is a very sudden announcement for any of us to accept," said a fifth-stage female elven saint. "I have my reasons, whether this competition was in question or not. You all know that it's about time we think of the future of the faction. Many of you already know that not just me but the other faction leaders have reached our limits as well. Even a vampire like Alistair Vandereyck, who lived for more than 2 centuries, is counting his days. And I'm already 150 years old. Already past the limit that my kin lives for. Unless I break through to the 8th stage, I will die within the next 2 decades. The same applies to most of the saints present here. We all have reached our limits, and soon, there won't be a firm wall left to protect us in the future. So it's about time we finally address the elephant in the room." "No offense, Ganesha," said Stalin to a 5-meter-tall figure with an elephant head. "None taken," said the elephant kin and nodded. "This is the best opportunity to create a chain of command for our future generations than trying to maintain our authority. Or else, we will be leaving our children and grandchildren defenseless for the vultures to hunt down. Or do you have objections because of them are women?" declared and questioned the tigerkin leader as he caressed his long braided white beard. "No, faction leader. We did not mean it like that," apologized one of the saints. "My decision is final. Should either of them win this competition, they will become my successor. And I will personally train them how to rule until my last moment comes. I don't want any objection. I would rather fight you all to death than crippling the future of our faction and clans," declared the leader. No one dared to speak a word after this. They knew how stubborn and terrifying their leader was, and now that he had made up his mind, there was no going back. At this moment, both the human mage demonkin swordsman 6th-stage saints were looking at each other with furious eyes as if they wanted to kill each other at any cost. Both of them were the leaders of their clans and also one of the top 10 strongest people in the entire empire. But they too had no choice than swallowing that decision made by their leader. One would expect them to be happy that their daughters were a candidate for the faction leader's position, but in actuality, they knew what this announcement ensued. At night, when the meeting was over and the Tigerkin Bearkin Knight were alone, the knight finally asked with eyes full of concern, "My lord, I don't understand your decision. Both of the Michelson Armitage clan already has too much power and authority in the faction. Why give them a chance to rule?" Contrary to his previous image of a kind and thoughtful leader, Stalin scoffed off with a grin on his face. As if I'll let a woman become the leader of this faction I built with my own hands. The only reason I said that was to motivate them and appear as fair and encouraging to everyone in the meeting hall. But in reality, I wanted to shut up the Michelson Va Armitage clan. If I sided with either of them, it would ruin my rule and unnecessary faction wars would arise. And hence I appeared fair and just to keep them both in check. So that none of them can complain and those who did will be hated by the entire faction and clan's leaders, saying that they're hungry for power. But whoever wins the competition will be the ruler only in the name while we will reap the rewards from the chosen territory," said Stalin in a sinister tone. "And then we would side with the clan that didn't win to oppress the winner's clan, saying that the faction should be put as first priority, and then the winner Va their clan would have no choice but to concede their authority over that land." I'm certain that both of them also understood the consequences of my announcement, before they even made a move for my position. "I have already won the war," said Stalin and chuckled. "Leader, you're very evil," said Berkin with a pleased smile. To his response, Stalin gazed at the bright night and the two moons shining in the sky as he spoke in an evil and greedy tone. "In this world, being evil is a necessity." 3 weeks passed and only 1 week was left till the beginning of completion. After the public announcement by the government at every populated area such as towns, villages and cities, the preparation for the emperor's chosen competition began with full speed. In every major city, a battleground that sized twice as big as a football field and could facilitate thrice the number of audiences was built in a span of 3 weeks. The government spared no effort in making these ancient gladiator coliseums-styled battle arenas that could hold 10,000 people battle at the same time. Hundreds of magically reinforced wide platforms that would hold the one-on-one battles and group battles were made in the most effective ways. Just one of these arenas put the Olympics competition on Earth to shame, and throughout the Rocco's empire, there were more than 5,000 of such battle arenas were built for the sake of this competition, indicating the intensity and hype towards it. As per the demographics and estimations, more than 100 million people were expected to participate in this competition throughout the empire, and the government had already planned about how to make it most enjoyable and comfortable for the people who would spend money to watch the fights. To common folks, it seemed like it was an expensive project, but the business minds knew that they were bound to earn 100 times the revenue that was invested. Because as it was a once-in-50 years event, the number of people who'd be flocking to these battle arenas and the money spent on tickets, food, merchandise, and betting was already expected to be 12 trillion gold coins. The legal betting system alone was more than enough to recover all the money spent in just the first week as the competition would begin, because everyone wanted to turn their life around during this historical event. As for the rules based on general knowledge, every candidate will get only 2 chances to fight. Those who keep winning will be taken into the top 1,000 spots in the city-level matches. This way, the fine crop would be separated from the weed in the beginning stages, and only those with proper strength and skills would move forward. But even here, the registration fee for the fighters was 10 gold coins, which was something common folks had to save up for months to gather. Then the winners will compete for the district-level matches and so move forward for the higher stages, and stronger warriors would emerge from all these candidates. After that, they will be sent to the district championship arenas and progress to the qualifiers for the 1 million candidates who would fight in the arenas in the capital Rathna. For Rukon district inside the capital, the first-round battle arena was placed in a city called Zafar. This was the closest place where Khan had decided to compete for the competition and had already registered himself when only a week was left for the start of the first competition. He thought that a battle royale would be the best idea to rush out the competition, but he obviously understood that the government wanted to milk the cash cow for as much as they can, and at this rate, the competition itself would take at least 3 to 4 weeks to reach the final stages, where only master and grandmaster rank fighters would be left. As for himself, Khan had been training more intensely ever since Sale gave him the news, because eventually, he would be fighting the truly skilled and talented geniuses who had been training since a young age. He was already an intermediate rank magician, and after his mana capacity knowledge in manipulating mana and elements reach a higher degree, he had improved dramatically in many weapons and combat skills. The main reason why Khan intended to participate wasn't to win the competition, but to gain even more combat experience. copy and learn new and articulate fighting skills and combat techniques of various classes and their respective spells and weapons thanks to the blessings given by the war deity himself. This was like the most expensive foods va dishes were being offered to him for free. And since he would be fighting with different species and their respective skills, what Khan wanted to do was emerge as a new type of battlemaster who was efficient in many known battle styles and weapons. The competition itself had no rules about what kind of profession or weapons a candidate had to use throughout the competition, so it was already seen in the past that many people, including hundreds of master rank individuals, using different types of battle styles. This was also preferred by the audience as one could exhibit their talent and skills as they kept progressing throughout the competition. Although many took such individuals as jokers who weren't serious about the competition, these types of candidates had a fan base of their own and they were the favorites for the many. In the meantime, 7 deadly sins had completely overtaken Rukon district as its shadow rulers and bloodborne company had reached a whole different level itself. His own self-worth was 5 billion gold while the SDS had earned 16 billion in the meantime. But yet, nobody knew their real faces or their true identities. The name of the peak Grandmaster Blacksmith Albestros Winston was now even famous amongst the saint rank people of the 3 factions. Many trying to curry favor with him and offer riches and their connections to have him make their customized armors and weapons. Khan had been cautious to hide his identity as the real owner, and people only knew of Cyril Va Omega as the 2 proprietors who worked under Albestros. With the competition on the way, he knew for certain that it wasn't a wise choice for the masses to know his relationship with the company, because he knew that one way or another, he was bound to earn the ire of many powerful individuals and clans. So appearing as someone without background was a better choice than flexing his wealth or connections with powerful people. He didn't even intend to reveal that he was a semi-saint until the final rounds, where he would fight the truly talented and gifted geniuses of the young generation. Everything was already planned ahead and unbeknownst to anyone. He was already setting his chess pieces for the finale. When the grand opening day for the competition finally came, Khan left his mansion in a luxurious magic vehicle along with Omega and Ronin, both of whom had risen to level 130 just a few days ago. "My lord, I don't understand one thing. Why didn't you use that recommendation token to register yourself as a Grandmaster Warrior in the competition? It would have saved you a lot of unnecessary hassle and time than fighting weaklings and posers. You would be directly fighting in the qualifiers instead of wasting time," asked Omega, who was in his normal human form. "Dimwit, it should be obvious to you already. Maybe spend some time reading battle tactics-related books than just practicing your sword skills every day," interjected Ronin as he scoffed off. The next second, Khan gave a light smile at the subordinate and spoke in a gentle tone. "Me participating in this competition using that recommendation token. It's a trap." Inside the carriage-like magic vehicle that ran on mana ores as fuel, Khan revealed why he didn't choose to use the recommendation token given by Sale while registering for the competition. Omega nodded in response and clenched his fist tightly with a furious expression on his face. "Those damn pure-blood faction bastards. They really think of us as their puppets just because none of us is a saint-rank fighter." "I agree with your decision, my lord," spoke the magic swordsman's subordinate. Inside the luxurious magic vehicle, an elaborate plan was discussed between Khan and the 2 subordinates as they embarked on their journey to Zafir City. As soon as they entered the outer gates of the Zafir City, which was already 4 times bigger than Flavit City, a dense and bustling crowd had already filled up the streets, and all of them were headed towards the northern end where the battle arena was situated. During their travel, Khan and the company noticed that the mood around the whole city was that of a celebration, like a yearly festival where people around the corners of the empire came and merrily mingled together. Not a single one of the shops, let it be a food vendor, hotels, or ornament shops, were without customers at this point. And this was just one street in the city. Khan predicted that it was the same for all the streets that led toward the arena. And this was just one city. 5,000 more cities were also hosting such arenas throughout the empire. So naturally, 1 billion or 2 people would definitely be part of this competition as an audience or people who bet on it. Ballads about the glorious victory and the hope to change one's life were sung by bards in designated places as arranged by the authorities throughout the city. This was their way to hype up the event even further, although Khan hadn't been part of any cultural event of the Rocco's empire yet. He felt like even those would hardly come close to the grandness of the Emperor's chosen competition. And now their goal was to reach the arena safely by evening where his first 2 matches were scheduled. This was going to be the first step towards achieving the new plans that he discussed earlier. Just as the trio was steadily traveling towards their destination from stone-paved streets, their entourage came across one of the crowded paths where for some reason, hundreds of people were gathered and blocked the way. To Khan and the subordinates, they were already able to sense a skirmish 300 meters away because of their ranks and range of abilities. A fight was audible even from inside of the vehicle. In front of the main gate of a big company building, a fight had broken that gathered the attention of the masses who were heading towards the arena. "Sir, please believe me. I'm telling you the truth. It wasn't me," spoke a middle-aged green and frail orc in a groaning voice as he clenched his stomach and got up after being kicked by a guard. Behind this guard in silver armor, a duo of humans stood in their high-class businessman clothes. This group was surrounded by a dozen normal workers in company uniforms and 5 master rank guards. The fat and half-bald man in the middle, who looked in his 60s, spoke in scorn as he looked at the thrashed orc. "Serious. I thought you were someone who could be trusted. But you have been scamming me for months. Tell me, where is the money you embezzled behind my back?" spoke the man in an enraged tone. The orc, who was frail in physique despite being from a species of giant creatures, brushed off the blood on his lips and replied in a weak tone. "Sir, I have been working for this company for a decade now. Have I ever given you any chance to complain? And the money you say that I embezzled can't be gathered or transacted with the little authority I have in the company. Unless it's someone from your own family, none of those transactions can be approved in the first place," explained the orc. Even the crowd encircling this group was getting a gist of what was happening here. The next moment, a loud and high-pitched voice came from behind the old man. "Nonsense! So are you implying that either my father or someone among our family members stole the company's money and put the blame on your head? Who the hell are you trying to fool?" shouted the young man who stood behind the former, his gaze full of scorn as he rebuked the orc. He pointed his hands towards the group of people dressed in uniforms and asked in a condescending tone, "Tell me, who did you see moving all those record books? You better remember correctly," asked the son as he emphasized the last word. It was Mr. Sirius," said a tall Mithran's male. "Yes. I remember seeing Sirius secretly carrying many record books from time to time," testified an elf. As all the workers spoke against him one by one, Sirius fell on his knees in disbelief. He was being set up by the people he had been working together with for half a decade. Just then, he noticed a smirk on the face of the owner's son, who was the loudest one here. "Guards! Cut his tongue and both of his hands. He should pay for betraying our trust," commanded the old man furiously, suddenly acting unreasonable out of the blue. A master-rank wolfkin swordsman walked forth, and the other guards frisked the middle-aged orc, who was still unable to believe the words of his boss, whom he served over a decade. The man he sacrificed many years of his life for. The wolfkin raised his sword as per the orders and swung it downwards without giving the orc a chance to retaliate. Swoosh! Shing! A crisp noise of metal clanging suddenly filled the surroundings, and a broken blade dropped on the ground. The wolfkin looked at his broken sword, at the hilt which remained in his hands. Before the sword even touched the orc's arms, a curved sword had cut down the blade of the attacker in a second. The figure of a man donned in a white and gray suit with ashen hair appeared in between this group. But rather than trying to meddle in between their matters, he looked at the orc with a stern gaze and spoke in a solemn voice. "My master wants to meet you." The crowd that was encircling the site of the ruckus perked their ears as soon as Omega appeared and saved the orc, who was just about to get both of his hands cut down. Most of the people were already scared and baffled after seeing how the old man and his guards didn't think twice before physically harming the orc in public. As if they feared no law at all. Omega gave a deathly glare towards the father and son duo as well as the guards who were acting erratically in front of the public despite having no authority to do so. "Hey! Who are you?" asked one of the guards. The group of 5 master rank guards already entailed that the old man was something very powerful and with a strong backing. "All your matters with him are settled. He will be coming with me now," spoke Omega, ignoring the group as he walked towards Sirius. "He must be one of his accomplices. That's why he's trying to save him," shouted the son. "Sigh. Why is it that the weaklings and idiots are so loud in the world while the strong and intelligent keep their mouths shut?" lamented Omega as he sighed with a helpless expression. Shrill. Instead of wasting any more time on elaborating, Omega quickly released his aura of a peak grandmaster, and aside from the normal passerby and Sirius, everyone from the group of assailants, let it be guards or the office workers, were instantly forced to fall on their knees under his immense heavy pressure. Even the guards who had frisked Sirius before were swatted on the road and didn't even have the strength to lift their heads. "My master doesn't have too much time to waste. So choose whether you want to waste your time here, explaining your innocence to the people who just tried to maim you for the rest of your life, or come with me and hear what my lord has to say," spoke Omega in a kingly voice. Sirius, who was completely taken aback by this sudden revelation, felt like his world turned around in a minute. He was wondering if all of this was a dream. Just a minute ago, he was falsely accused and publicly humiliated. Then his colleagues turned on him, and the man he had loyally served for a decade ordered the guards to cut off both of his hands. Even he was having a hard time swallowing it all together. But before he could speak or question anything, a tyrannical pressure was released from inside of a luxurious carriage-like vehicle, and a domineering voice resounded in the entire street. "There's no point in explaining yourself. Even for a passerby like us, it's easy to see that the verdict of you being guilty of those accusations has already been made. Otherwise, they would deal with the matter in secret instead of making a show for the public. This is called putting an act for someone, and you are being used as a sacrificial lamb," spoke Khan from inside the vehicle. Although no one could see him, the pressure release from the carriage already gave everyone a hint of the person inside being even stronger than Omega. "But sir," said Sirius, "and that old man is also aware of you being innocent, but during your conversation, I saw a change in his expression. It was a face of realization. From what I can guess, he knows that it was indeed his son who embezzled the money but still chose to blame it on you, because it would affect his family name and prestige as the owner of the company. And you are a necessary sacrifice for maintaining that pretense," interjected Khan before the orc could plead. After his explanation, even Sirius had a bewildered expression. In his mind, he started to connect the dots, and one thing he realized was that despite all the evidence showing that he was innocent, and suddenly his colleagues turning on him indeed looked shady. And then the owner's son insisting that it was him after this matter was exposed also looked suspicious. Other workers were trying to keep their jobs while agreeing with the owner's son, while the owner himself wanted to maintain his image despite realizing the truth. And at the end, Sirius was discarded despite his years of loyalty to cover up a scam caused by the son. At this point, Sirius completely gave up. In mere moments, his entire life was turned around. This betrayal hurt more than being falsely accused of something he didn't do. All his sleepless nights and hard work he offered for the sake of the company like a workaholic employee went into vain for reasons he did not even know about. "Come with me," spoke Omega as he put his hand on the shoulder of the orc. After accepting the mental shock, Sirius somehow mustered the strength and courage to follow behind Omega. He knew one thing for sure at this moment. If not for this peak grandmaster and his lord who showed up out of nowhere and saved him, he would lose both his hands and tongue, and then get put in jail for the crime he didn't commit, and who knew how miserable the rest of his life would be. To him, this sudden appearance of these individuals was akin to how a savior makes an entrance in the most perilous moments as they save weak and helpless people, just like heroes of the fairy tales. After Omega escorted Sirius to their ride, he opened the door for the orc. Sirius saw a handsome man dressed in black and golden noble clothes seated inside the vehicle. Khan gestured to Sirius to come inside and sit. "What's your name?" asked Khan kindly. My name is Sirius. Sirius Blake, replied the orc. Thank you for saving me, sir. I honestly don't know how to repay your kindness, said Sirius in a grateful tone despite Khan being younger than him by 2 decades. May I ask why you chose to help me? He asked in a cautious tone. Because he was old enough to understand that there were no free meals in the world. Khan gave a light smile and nodded in approval towards the orc. It's a very short and simple reason if I were to be honest with you, said Khan and continued in a gentle tone. I want you to work for me.